Chapter 179. Chiyu chuckled and said, "That fat girl. If I don't stimulate her, how can she grow so fast? Now is the time when she needs to work hard. Take care of her and don't let anything go wrong with her cultivation. Also, remember to give that pighead named Guan Jing 3,000 yuan a month after he wakes up. That's what I promised him." Ryua was surprised and said, "Give him money? Why?" Chiyu laughed and said, "Ask him what he used to do and you'll understand. Although this kid didn't come from a good family, he has gone through a lot of hardship. Tell him not to tell anyone about his past and tell everyone to treat him well. I think the warmth of our big family is the best way to change him." Ryua said, "Don't worry. Oh, by the way, I have good news to tell you." "What good news?" Chiyu asked. Ryua said, "The results of one of the fruits that we sent for testing have come out. What do you think?" Chiyu laughed and said, "Is there a need to guess? It must be very good." Ryua snorted and said, "You're so annoying. Why are you so confident?" Chiyu said proudly, "Of course, that's for sure. Don't forget that our fruits are unique." Ryua said, "Indeed, the results of the test are much better than I expected. The test results are for sapphire fruit. The content of various trace elements in it is at least 7 or 8 times that of ordinary fruit. Especially the content of various vitamins, it is even more shocking. A person only needs to eat 1 sapphire fruit a week and the vitamins will be enough to support his needs for a week. Moreover, the various trace elements are extremely beneficial to the body. The effects of relaxing muscles and activating blood vessels are only ordinary. Do you know what the final conclusion of the test was? They said that this is simply a fruit of longevity. It definitely has a special ability to prolong life." Chiyu said, "It's rare that the effect is so good. I didn't put so much hope on the sapphire fruit in vain. The effects of the other fruits would probably be slightly worse than it, but not by much. How about this, after all the test reports are out, you can start shooting the advertisement based on the test reports and the preserved fruit. It's time to ask Miss Xiao Lu for help." Before he left, he signed a contract with Xiao Lu. The contract was for a year, and the endorsement fee was a nominal 1 million Yanhuang coins. For a famous singer like Xiao Lu, this price was equivalent to nothing. Ryua said, "Chiyu, what about when we were doing the advertisement? Should I put a price on it? What's your price range?" Chiyu thought about it. He said, "Let's not mention the price for now. Wait until we are ready to officially start sales. The advertisement must highlight the original ecology and the characteristics of these fruits, and it must let the people who see the advertisement feel the nobility of these fruits and the huge difference between them and ordinary fruit. This will pave the way for us to set the price in the future." He had discussed with Ryua. For these fruits from the ancient behemoth period, because of the monopoly, coupled with the impact of the rich original ecology of the fruit, taking the high-end route was the best choice. After all, the fruits that could be brought back from the ancient behemoth period were still limited. The rarer something was, the more expensive it was. The less, the more expensive it was. Only then could Kirin Group promote its brand earlier. "Okay, I got it. Pay more attention to your body over there. Be careful. If there's anything you need, call back as soon as possible. Hurry up and call back, okay?" Moon said with concern. Chiyu smiled gently and said, "Dear, you are becoming more and more like a good wife and mother. Oh, by the way, don't be reluctant to bring the ancient heart. Bring it when you cultivate. It will definitely be very beneficial. Under the stimulation of the cold, it will be very helpful for your cultivation." "Okay, I will. Then goodbye. Remember to call me every day." Ryua hung up the phone reluctantly. During the process of Chiyu using the electric connector, Yumu had been watching him. When she saw that he was done, she said, "Mr. Chi, aren't you afraid that I will hear your secret?" Chiyu made an indifferent gesture and said, "We don't have any secrets to talk about. You know what you should know." Yumu smiled indifferently and said, I didn't know that Mr. Chi is also a businessman in the fruit business. Chi Yu smiled and said, It's just the beginning. However, if our company enters the international market in the future, we must consider Greece first. At that time, we still need to ask Miss Yumu for help. Yumu looked at him helplessly. She asked in her heart, Chi Yu, what kind of person are you? The 3 cars finally arrived at Parthenon. When Chi Yu got out of the car, he was attracted by the temple in front of him at first glance. Parthenon looked similar to the signs of the Zodiac in the cartoon. It was just that it was single. It was grand and tall. The elegance of ancient Greece was perfectly interpreted on it. Although many places were damaged, it did not hinder the grandeur of Parthenon. The majestic and sacred atmosphere made the surrounding atmosphere a lot more dignified. After the 4 constellation guardians personally opened the door for Yumu and Chi Yu, they quietly followed behind them. 8 gazes were focused on Chi Yu, making him feel a little uneasy. However, Chi Yu's attention was now focused on Parthenon. He did not seem to feel the gazes of the constellation guardians. Yumu stood beside Chi Yu. Her height was just right beside Chi Yu's ear. Her gentle and calm voice sounded beside Chi Yu's ear. There are 8 Doric columns on the east and west sides of the temple. There are 17 columns on each side of the temple. They are erected on a 3-tiered platform. The highest level of the platform is about 69.5 meters long and 39.9 meters wide. Inside the colonnade is the corridor. Parthenon means the Saintess Palace. Chi Yu looked at Yumu and smiled. So the person who lives here is you, the Saintess. The obviously teasing voice caused 4 footsteps to sound behind Chi Yu. Although it was only 1 step, the huge pressure instantly solidified on his broad back. Although the pressure was only directed at Chi Yu, but how could Yumu not feel it? The smile on her face disappeared. She looked at Chi Yu. Mr. Chi, let me introduce you to these constellation guardians. As she said that, she had already turned around in front of Chi Yu. Her originally calm purple eyes flashed with a sharp gaze. It caused the 4 constellation guardians to tremble at the same time. They subconsciously took a step back and respectfully lowered their heads. When Chi Yu also turned around, Yumu's expression had already returned to normal. She smiled and said, You have seen 3 of them before. Let me introduce them formally. As she said that, she pointed to the 4 constellation guardians and said at the same time, This is Miguelis from Sagittarius, this is Ilias from Leo, and this is Salem from Aquarius. Speaking until here, her voice paused for a moment. She pointed to the last one, who was also the first constellation guardian that Chi Yu met, and said, This is Miero from Capricorn. Just like the other 3 constellation guardians, Miero only nodded lightly at Chi Yu. His cold face did not have any fluctuation of emotion. Chi Yu smiled and said, Looking at the constellation guardians, I really feel inferior. Why are the Greek constellation guardians all handsome men and beautiful women? Compared to our Zodiac guardian, they are much stronger. Miss Yumu and I are even more incomparable. It is simply like heaven and earth. Yumu smiled and said, Mr. Chi, have you forgotten what I said in the car just now? When you look at a person, you don't look at his outer appearance. Chi Yu looked at the 4 constellation guardians in front of him provocatively and said, That is to say, in Miss Yumu's eyes, I should be better than the 4 of them? If he was really here to play, he was afraid that he would not be able to find out the secrets of these constellation guardians. Only by colliding with each other would he be able to find out something. Therefore, before Chi Yu came, he had already thought it through. He believed that Yumu would not really hurt him. But due to the conflict between the East and the West, it would lead to different ideals. It would definitely cause some trouble, and this trouble was exactly what he wanted to use. Ilias snorted and said, Mr. Chi, I hope you can pay attention to your language. This is Athens, not your Yenwang Republic. If you speak disrespectfully to Miss again, I will definitely challenge you to a duel. Chi Yu smiled without batting an eyelid. His lips moved slightly, and under his precise control, his voice was bound into a line, quietly entering Ilya's ears. "Pretty boy, are you licking me?" Ilya's eyes were cold, and he suddenly took a step forward. His shoulder had already collided with Chi-Yu's chest. Chi-Yu did not dodge, and watched as Ilya's shoulder collided with his chest with a muffled thud. Chi-Yu's body immediately flew out, and he let out a mournful scream as he fell backwards for 7 to 8 meters. Ilya's was stunned, and the other Constellation Guardians were also stunned. They obviously did not expect Chi-Yu to be so weak. Miero was slightly better. After all, it was his first time seeing Chi-Yu, and the other 3 Constellation Guardians had previously seen the power of Chi-Yu's ultimate Kirin arm. The one who felt the most surprised was Ilya's. When his shoulder came into contact with Chi-Yu's chest, it was as if he had hit an iron plate. At the same time, 4 sharp streams of air instantly erupted from Chi-Yu's chest, deeply piercing into his body. These 4 streams of air had different attributes, and as soon as they entered his meridians, they immediately dispersed, and in the blink of an eye, they had already entered his body. Just as he was about to use his own energy to refine these 4 streams of air, the 4 energy of water, wind, thunder, and fire suddenly disappeared. Seeing Chi-Yu's tall body fall out just like that, Yama was also shocked, but her reaction was still very fast. Chi-Yu was her guest, after all, her delicate body slightly swayed, and she had already appeared in the path of Chi-Yu's flying back. With a light wave of her hands, a soft force like a soft cushion supported Chi-Yu's body. However, what Yama did not expect was that at this time, Chi-Yu, who was flying backwards in the air, actually turned around. Originally, he was facing her back, but now he was facing his chest, and an extremely sharp energy quietly came out. When Yamu felt its sharpness, the layer of soft energy that she released was actually quietly split into 2, but strangely, when the sharp energy just approached Yamu's body, it automatically disappeared. The sudden change suddenly caught Yamu off guard. The speed of the energy in her body was not any worse than Chi-Yu's, but in this sudden situation, she naturally thought of protecting her body first, and subconsciously spread the energy of her own divinity all over her body, and at this time, Chi-Yu's body had already rushed over. In the air, Chi-Yu seemed to be very panicked, his face became extremely pale, and he rushed over while waving his hands and feet. When the sharp energy disappeared, and Yamo gathered her own energy to prepare for a possible attack, his body had already arrived in front of Yamo. "Ah!" Sleeping Rain cried out in surprise, her slender body was actually hugged by Chi-Yu in the air. Chi-Yu's movements were very fast. As soon as his body came into contact with Yamu, his arms immediately closed, and completely embraced Yamu in his arms. In that instant of contact, whether it was Chi-Yu or Yamu, both clearly felt a strong electric current instantly spread from the point of contact between the two. Even Chi-Yu, who had a cunning look in his eyes, could not help but be stunned for a moment. Yamu was indeed worthy of being the successor of goddess Athena. Although the sudden change caught her unprepared, she still reacted immediately. Her body instantly turned in the air, and she had already thrown Chi-Yu's body away. At least on the surface, Chi-Yu and her had only come into contact for a moment, but both of them knew very well how strong the feeling was in that instant of contact. The energy waves on Yamu's body were clearly imprinted in Chi-Yu's mind. It was a very dense energy. What surprised Chi-Yu was that the dense energy on Yamu's body was not as gentle as her appearance, but it was full of domineering aura, and it was actually more masculine and domineering. This kind of energy appearing on an absolute beauty really surprised him. Is this the unique energy of the goddess of wisdom? Actually, what Chi-Yu did not know was that Athena was the goddess of war and wisdom. As the guardian of Athens, her combat power was extremely strong. In Greek mythology, Athena was the only one who could compete with Hades, the king of the underworld, and Poseidon, the king of the sea. How could she be in charge of the 3 realms without strong combat power? The cartoon about Greek mythology in the Sun Nation was actually very one-sided. One must know, as a god who was famous for fighting, how could she rely on the laughable Saint Seiya to protect herself? How could her own combat power be comparable to that of the Saint Seiya developed by humans? The constellation guardians protecting Athena only played a supporting role to her, and were also the servants of goddess Athena. And the real strength of Athena was mainly reflected in her combat power, and of course, her wisdom. With a cry, Chi-Yu had already fallen on the lawn in front of Parthenon. He kept groaning in pain, and for a moment, it seemed that it was difficult for him to even stand up. Yamu's delicate body spun one round in the air, and her long skirt floated in an arc. Her expression changed twice, and her gaze finally landed on Ilya's. At least on the surface, everything that happened just now was caused by Ilya's. Ilya's was terrified and wanted to explain, but was stopped by Yamu. Yamu shook her head gently at him, then walked towards Chi-Yu who had fallen on the ground. "Mr. Chi, are you okay?" Yamu stopped 2 meters in front of Chi-Yu and asked with concern. Chi-Yu groaned as he got up from the ground. "I won't die yet, Miss Yamu. Is this how you Greeks treat your guests? I remember that you said that you would guarantee my safety. But now it seems that it is very difficult to guarantee my safety." At this time, the 4 constellation guardians also walked over. Ilyas's emotions were extremely complicated, and he could not speak for a moment. But the Capricorn constellation guardian beside him, Miero, saw everything clearly. His ice-cold gaze was like an unmeltable 10,000-year-old ice as he stared at Chi-Yu. His body floated forward like lightning, arriving in front of Chi-Yu. "Despicable person from the east, you have profaned the purity of the young miss. I want to duel with you." Chi-Yu was stunned, and pretended to not understand. "Profane? What do you mean by profane? Did I? If not for Miss Yamu blocking me just now, I'm afraid I would have fallen to my death. I really don't understand what is wrong with you constellation guardians. Do you only know how to solve problems with violence? Miss Yamu, seems like they don't really listen to you." Yamu glanced at Miero and said, "Forget it, Mr. Chi did not do it on purpose, Miero, you can step down." When she said the word "on purpose," she deliberately emphasized her tone, and looked at Chi-Yu with anger. Chi-Yu laughed and went forward to pat Miero's shoulder and said, "That's right, I did not do it on purpose. My chest is still hurting, Miss Yamu. Can we find a place to rest? Didn't you say that this Parthenon is your place to stay? I think there must be a room for you to rest in." When he said this, even Miguelis, who had a better temper, could not hold it in anymore and angrily rebuked. "Presumptuous, Parthenon is Mrs. Place to stay, how can we let you?" Yamu coughed lightly, and stopped Miguelis, because she knew, if they continued to argue like this, who knew what kind of dispute Chi-Yu would stir up. Now she was already thinking, was it right or wrong to invite Chi-Yu to Greece this time? "Mr. Chi, I think with your body's condition, you do not need to rest for the time being. How about this, after we visit Parthenon, I will send you to the hotel to rest." Chi-Yu shrugged and said, "All right then, I will listen to Miss Yamu's arrangement." As he said this, he smiled slightly, and walked into the legendary Parthenon accompanied by Yamu. There were many mountains in the city of Athens, and Parthenon was on the top of a mountain. Looking around from here, one could almost see the entire city of Athens. This was also the highest point in the entire city of Athens. When Chi-Yu first stepped into Parthenon, a special feeling suddenly came from all directions, and Yamu, who was beside him, also had a qualitative change in her temperament. Chi-Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he turned to look at Yamu, only to see a faint layer of white light appear on Yamu's delicate body. She walked beside him, but it was as if he could not see her steps. Her gaze was so gentle, but it was filled with an inviolable aura. A faint divine light shone from Yamu's eyes, and at this moment, Chi-Yu experienced her power. The energy aura emitted from Yamu's body was like a solid substance, without any confusing changes. However, The energy that seemed solid was unfathomable, as if she was a sun full of surging energy, and what she emitted was only a very small part of it. After returning from the era of the ancient beasts to the modern era, this was the first time Chi-Yu had encountered an opponent that could pose a threat to him. Yamu's power was different from his, and as for what the difference was, even he could not tell. Moving his gaze away from Yamu, he followed her gaze to the front, and saw a statue of the goddess Athena enshrined in the hall. The statue, including the pedestal, was about 12 meters high, wearing a helmet, holding a spear, holding a shield, and on its right palm was a statue of the goddess of victory with her wings spread out. The statue of Athena was made of wood, and its face, hands, and feet were carved out of ivory. Its eyes were exquisite stone, and its armor and clothes were made of gold leaf. There were 2 layers of Doric-style cloisters along the 3 walls of the statue. Although it was just a statue, standing in front of it, Chi-Yu could clearly feel that a layer of invisible energy was constantly emitting from the statue, and the source of this energy was from the sky, as if there was an energy column in the sky constantly pouring energy into the head of the statue of the goddess Athena, and then slowly releasing it from her body. On the ground in the middle of the hall there was a very complicated primary color pattern, in which there were 12 points, and in the middle of the pattern was a 6-pointed star pattern. Like the statue of the goddess Athena, it was constantly emitting a faint energy, and these 2 energies resonated with each other, filling the entire Parthenon with a sacred aura. After Yamu walked into the temple, her whole body seemed to have become one with the mystery. There was a faint light in her eyes, and the trace of anger from before had quietly disappeared without her realizing it. Yamu smiled and said to Chi-Yu, "Parthenon is the highest achievement of ancient Greek Doric architecture. It is well-proportioned, dignified, and harmonious. The height of the pillar is about 10.4 meters, and the diameter of the base is about 1.9 meters. The diameter of the corner pillar is slightly larger. The diameter of the pillar is slightly larger than the diameter of the base. The surface of the pillar is engraved with 20 vertical grooves, strong and powerful. The stone beams on the pillars are not carved, and the 3 long boards on the beams harmoniously combine the vertical trend of the pillar and the horizontal trend of the beam. Between the 3 boards is a high-relief sculpture. It describes the story of Lepidus fighting with the centaurs in Greek mythology. The mountain flowers are carved according to the triangular composition, adapting to the shape of the mountain flowers. The west mountain flower is carved with the scene of the battle between Athena and the god of the sea Poseidon, and the east mountain flower is carved with the scene of Athena's birth. The sculpture is decorated with gold, blue, red, and other colors. The upper part of the wall inside the corridor has a circle of continuous shallow relief sculptures about 1 meter high, depicting the enthusiastic scene of Athena's festival celebration. Originally, Parthenon had been destroyed in a war, leaving only a few stone pillars and some broken boulders around it. But ever since I appeared, the Greek government specially allocated funds to rebuild this temple dedicated to Athena. Everything was built according to its original appearance, and most of the materials used were originally destroyed during the war, so it looked like it was the same as the original. So it looks like this temple is still full of the most primitive form. Chi-Yu said, "The appearance of the temple may be repaired by manpower. But the soul of the temple, I'm afraid only Miss Yamu can give it." Yamu looked at Chi-Yu and said indifferently, "Mr. Chi really has a unique insight. This is where I live and where I train." Chi-Yu looked at the circular pattern and said, "The signs of the zodiac are not represented by this pattern. What do the various patterns on it represent?" Yamu said, "Yes, this pattern represents the signs of the zodiac. The signs of the zodiac are the crystallization of the wisdom of our ancient Greek people. The signs of the zodiac represent different constellations. For example, this one here is the Aries constellation of the 12 zodiac palaces, followed by the Taurus constellation, Gemini constellation, Cancer constellation, and so on." Chi-Yu nodded. He said, "So that's how it is." It seems like regardless of whether it is the East or the West, the ancients all had very high intelligence. Just like the heavenly stems and earthly branches that our ancestors in the land of Yan Huang researched, our 12 zodiac guardians also represent the 12 earthly branches. Every zodiac guardian god warrior had his or her own zodiac sign, and they were in harmony with the 12 earthly branches they belonged to. For example, the rat of the zodiac guardian god warrior represents the son of the 12 earthly branches. Yama was about to speak. Although she had knocked Chiyu out, she had no choice but to admit it. Ilyas, who had suffered in silence, could not help but say in disdain, "I really don't know what your Yan Huang ancestors were thinking. What pig, dog, or rat? Unlike us, we are all Taurus, Leo, and Virgo. It seems like the wisdom of humans is different in different regions." Hearing Ilyas say this, the other 3 zodiac guardians could not help but smile faintly. Their expressions became even more arrogant. Chiyu did not even turn to look at Ilyas, nor was he angered by his words. He looked straight at the statue of the goddess Athena, and into the eyes of the goddess Athena. He said calmly, "Yes, the Yan Huang ancestors were very honest. We, the 12 zodiac, the 6 paths of reincarnation, represent the expectations and requirements of our ancestors. How can you understand this?" Ilyas snorted in disdain. Sophistry. Yamu did not stop Ilyas, but when she heard Chiyu's words, she was very interested, and could not help but ask, "Mr. Chi, can you explain?" Chiyu turned to Yamu and smiled. At this moment, from his smile, Yamu saw a kind of pride, a pride that came from the pride of his people. That's right, Chiyu was full of pride because he was a descendant of Yan Huang. The 12 zodiac, the 6 paths of reincarnation, from a certain point of view, can be divided into 6 ancestors. They also represent different meanings, and the different requirements and expectations of the Yan Huang ancestors. First, the first group is the rat and the bull. The rat represents wisdom, and the bull represents diligence. Wisdom and diligence must be closely combined. If there is only wisdom and no diligence, then it will become cleverness. But if there is only diligence and no brains, then it will become stupidity. These two must be combined. This is the expectations and requirements of our ancestors for the first group, and it is also the most important group. Hearing Chiyu's words, the 4 constellation guardians' eyes revealed a trace of surprise. In their eyes, the ruffian who was full of scoundrelly aura had disappeared, and an invisible dignity emanated from the solemn Chiyu. The second group is the tiger and the rabbit. The tiger represents bravery, and the rabbit represents caution. Bravery and cautiousness must be closely combined in order to be bold and careful. If bravery is separated from caution, it will become recklessness, and without bravery, it will become cowardice. This group is also very important, so it is placed in the second position. Through this group, I can also tell you Westerners, when we Yan Huang people show caution, do not think that we Yan Huang people do not have a brave side. At this point, Chiyu no longer concealed his energy aura. In an instant, a huge amount of energy seeped out of his body. Even though this was Parthenon, even though he was beside the inheritor of the goddess Athena, but the huge amount of energy that he emitted was not inferior to the holiness of this place. The energy that came from the source raised Chi-Yu's aura to the peak. The aura of the Xianyuan sword had already merged with Chi-Yu's aura in this period of time, and the sharp aura of a ruler spread out in an instant. Including Yamu, the 5 Greeks retreated almost at the same time. The 4 constellation guardians retreated more than 10 steps, and even Yamu retreated a full 3 steps, her eyes filled with shock. At this moment, she truly felt how terrifying the energy that Chi-Yu emitted was. Chapter 180. The tyrannical aura of a ruler disappeared, and Chi-Yu smiled at Yamu. The immense confidence made his body look even taller. The 4 constellation protectors that were previously forced back by Chi-Yu were all deep in thought. It was unknown if it was because of Chi-Yu's immense strength that shocked them, or because of Chi-Yu's words that made them think. Next is the horse and sheep. The horse represents bravery, and the sheep represents obedience. If a person only cares about himself and goes straight for his goal, and does not care about his surroundings, he will definitely bump into his surroundings, and may not be able to reach his goal. But, if a person only cares about obedience, he may not even have a direction. So, the nature of bravery must be closely combined with obedience. This is the fourth set of expectations that our ancestors have for us. Next is the monkey and chicken. The monkey represents flexibility, the chicken crows at a fixed time, represents stability. Flexibility and constancy must be tightly combined. If you only care about flexibility and do not have stability, no matter how good the policy is, you will not be able to achieve anything. On one hand, you must have stability and maintain harmony and order. On the other hand, you must be able to be flexible and advance. That is the most fundamental point. Finally is the dog and pig. The dog represents loyalty, the pig represents obedience. If a person is too loyal and does not understand obedience, he will reject others. On the other hand, if a person is too obedient, without loyalty, this person will lose his principles. Regardless if it is loyalty to a race or loyalty to one's own ideals, you must be closely combined with obedience. That way, it will be easier to maintain the balance in the depths of your heart. With that, Chi Yu finally turned around, his gaze landing on Ilyas, who was deep in thought, and said indifferently, "Lastly, I want to know what expectations and requirements your Leo constellation, Sagittarius constellation, and the other constellations have for you? I hope you will not be stingy with your teachings." Seeing the light flickering in Chi Yu's eyes, Ilyas could not help but lower his head. Unknowingly, he had been overwhelmed by Chi Yu's imposing manner and conquered by Chi Yu's words. Chi Yu raised his hand, pointing his index finger at the 4 constellation protectors in front of him, his fingertip sweeping past the 4 of them. "Although I am here as a guest, but as a descendant of Yen and Huang, I will definitely not allow anyone to insult my race, my ancestors. This time, for the sake of Miss Yumu, I'll be lenient. If there is a next time, no matter who it is, I will definitely duel with them." At this point, he paused for a moment, and an energy aura that was as cold as the edge of a blade floated out. He said in a deep voice, "I won't rest until one of us dies." Ilyas suddenly took a step back and spat out a small mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale. If it wasn't for Miguelis supporting her, she would have died. I am afraid he has fallen to the ground. The light in his eyes dissipated and his body trembled slightly. The 4 hidden energies that Chi Yu had injected into his body had quietly burst forth at this moment. The energy was not strong. However, the destructive power produced by the energy that was compressed to the extreme was extremely terrifying. Not to mention that the current Ilyas had already lost his mind to Chi Yu's imposing manner and words. How could he still have the energy to resist the hidden energy attack? Yamu's delicate body had unknowingly appeared beside Ilyas, a gentle white light emitted from her body. Her right hand gently patted forward, and the invisible energy instantly enveloped Ilyas's body. With a groan, Ilyas spat out another mouthful of blood, but his complexion looked much better. Slowly turning around, facing Chi Yu, Yamu sighed and said, "Mr. Chi, I represent Ilyas to apologize for what happened just now. But this is Parthenon, a temple dedicated to goddess Athena. You have hurt the constellation guardians here, so you must give me an explanation. Miguelis, you guys go out first, without my permission, don't let anyone disturb us here." Miguelis supported Ilyas, and could not help but feel anxious, and could not help but say, "Miss, protecting you is our responsibility." Salang and Miero took a step forward at the same time. The 2 of them looked at each other, and respectfully said to Yamu, "Miss, please allow us to challenge Mr. Chi." Yamu's gaze slowly swept past the 4 of them, and said indifferently, "Get out, don't make me say the 3rd transformation." Although her gaze was still gentle, but at this moment, It was filled with unquestionable majesty. The gazes of the 4 constellation guardians were fixated on Yamu, facing Yamu's expressionless face. Although they were extremely unwilling, they had no choice but to slowly retreat out of Parthenon. With a slight smile, the seriousness on Chi Yu's face disappeared, and he looked at Yamu and said, "There's only me and Miss Yamu left in the temple, a man and a woman alone. Could it be that Miss Yamu is not afraid that I, this rogue, will make a move?" The timing of his words was very good. It was the moment when the 4 constellation guardians had retreated to the door, and had not completely retreated. Chi Yu's mental power could clearly feel that the 4 constellation guardians had the urge to rush back, but they resisted and looked at Chi Yu with eyes filled with anger and even resentment. Yamu looked at Chi Yu, her calm gaze suddenly revealing a trace of complicated feelings, as though she wanted to say something, but could not. The entire Parthenon temporarily fell into a state of silence. Chi Yu saw that Yamu did not care about him, and once again turned to face the statue of Athena, and walked over step by step. He walked all the way to the symbol of the signs of the Zodiac on the ground before stopping. The signs of the Zodiac under his feet were emitting energy, and Chi Yu was surprised to find that his own mental power had become more active than usual. Closing his eyes, he seemed to have entered another world. Surrounding him was a pitch-black starry sky, and in this starry sky, countless stars were revolving around his body. With him as the center, the 12 constellations gradually revealed their shapes, constantly changing from illusory to solid. Wave after wave of special energy probed Chi Yu's body. Every time it did so, Chi Yu's body trembled. Every time it did, it would cause a slight fluctuation in Chi Yu's Kiran thundercloud force. Purple, blue, red, and green, 4 colors of air gradually appeared around Chi Yu's body, forming a 4-colored light shield that protected his body, causing the energy attack brought by the starlight to be unable to detect his real aura. The scene suddenly changed, all the starlight became much dimmer, and slowly retreated into the distance. In this pitch-black night sky, Yamu's graceful figure quietly appeared 20 meters in front of Chi Yu, floating there face to face with him. "It is indeed magical. Is this a unique scene of Parthenon?" Chi Yu asked with a smile. At this time, his mind was completely immersed in his own mental power world, and everything that appeared in front of him was also a mental power world. It was also a world of mental strength. Of course, such a scene could only occur because of the influence of Parthenon's energy aura. Yamu nodded gently and said, "Mr. Chi, do you want to fight me here? I think you should understand that Parthenon is a temple dedicated to Goddess Athena. Here, my energy can be maximized and replenished. Although I know that you are very strong, I will not be able to defeat you. However, if you fight me here, your chances of winning are very, very slim." Chi Yu said indifferently, "Miss Yamu made your constellation protectors leave. I'm afraid it's not to fight with me. I can feel that although you are angry at my previous performance, you don't want to be my enemy in your heart, don't you?" Yamu sighed and said, "Mr. Chi knows that I don't want to be your enemy. Then why are you pressuring me after coming to Athens? Is it because Yamu did something wrong? Is it because Mr. Chi is not satisfied?" Chi Yu shook his head and said, "No, Miss Yamu has done very well. A special plane picked us up and personally came to the airport to welcome us. I'm afraid even the president of Greece would not receive such treatment. I don't mean to be your enemy. I just want to see the difference between your constellation guardians and our Yen Huang Zodiac guardian god warriors." Yamu smiled slightly and said, "Then what did Mr. Chi discover? Call me by my name. It's really awkward for us to call each other Miss and Mr. There are only the 2 of us here, aren't there?" Chi Yu looked at Yamu, the smile in his eyes had disappeared. "From the constellation protectors, I saw many differences between the West and the East. As far as I know, the Greek constellation protectors appeared with the appearance of Goddess Athena, and when you and them were born into this world, your identity and fate were already decided. After cultivating from a young age, the strength you possess is already quite astonishing. According to my own energy exploration, the energy strength of all the constellation protectors seems to be similar. The only difference is in the constellation they belong to. The energy aura and ability are also different. As for Miss Yamu, I have never been able to see through her. Unlike you, our Eastern Zodiac Guardian warriors are almost all discovered after birth, and there are even 2 that I found before coming here. So, I have to admit that in terms of overall strength, the mature constellation protectors are indeed stronger than our Zodiac Guardian warriors. Yama said, Mr. Chi, oh no Chi, you are an honest person. What you know, I can naturally feel it. Initially, when we arrived at the Yen Wang Republic, there was actually a period of time when I was very happy. Although we are also the protectors of this world, we are after all guarding a different piece of land. Even if it was me, I could not help but feel the competitive spirit in my heart. At that time, I could clearly feel the difference in strength between you and us. However, your Zodiac Guardian warriors also brought me a lot of surprises. Although your combat strength is not as strong as our constellation protectors, in terms of fighting spirit, you are much better. Especially that great sentiment of sacrificing your own life for your companions, it is something that I deeply admire. And when we went to the Yen Wang Republic, the biggest discovery was still your existence. You are also the only variable that I could not see through. Actually, whether it is humans or gods, they are all selfish. If not for your existence in the Zodiac Guardian warriors, perhaps, at the last moment, we would have already made a move on the holy relic. However, everything that you showed at that time made me dispel that thought, because I do not wish to have an enemy whose strength is not weaker than mine in the future. Chi-Yu said curiously, but, at that time, after I used the ultimate Kirin arm, my strength had already dropped to the lowest point. If you had made a move on me at that time, I would not have any ability to resist. You could even easily destroy me, or even destroy all the Zodiac Guardian warriors. Wouldn't that be even less of a threat to you? Yama shook her head and said, if it was really that simple, perhaps I would have made a move. But the truth is not like that. Just the reaction of the holy relic itself made it impossible for me to do that. If I really killed you that day, then, even if the holy relic self-destructed, it would not be used by us. Furthermore, your companions, including yourself, have not completely lost their ability to fight. I will not take the risk. I will not risk the lives of the constellation protectors. The potential of you Yen Huang people is almost immeasurable. I, Ming Ming, feel that your strength is not much stronger than any of us Zodiac Guardians, but in the end, you relied on your own strength to destroy that extremely powerful creature. Since you can explode with such an attack, who can guarantee that your comrades cannot do the same? Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that I have my eyes on you. Our relationship should not be hostile. We have the same characteristics and also have a similar mission. Since that is the case, why can't we cooperate with each other? Chi-Yu smiled faintly and said, cooperate? I am afraid that this is the real reason why Miss Yamu invited me to Greece. The relationship between Ming Ming and Lin Yifan has long been destined to be impossible, and you insisted on inviting us here. I believe you want to have a deep discussion with me, to test the possibility of our cooperation. Am I wrong? Yama smiled and said, Chi-Yu, you are a smart person, why ask me again? Not bad, I really hope to cooperate with the Zodiac Guardians, to let us be in the East and West respectively, to protect our common home. Chi-Yu looked at Yama with some doubt and said, your goodwill has been very clear since we were in Yen Huang. It is just that I do not understand the purpose of your cooperation. You have to know, generally speaking, there should not be any conflict between us. Of course, unless there is a situation like the giant beast relic. You are far in the west, and we are far in the east. As long as you do not invade, we Easterners will not invade others. As for the cooperation that Miss Rain I had mentioned, what was it for? This is very hard for me to understand. Yamu sighed softly and said, Chiyu, do you know? When I was first born into this world, I saw some things. At that time, although I was still a baby, those scenes were deeply engraved in my mind. As I grew older, everything that I saw then became clearer and clearer. The reason why I want to cooperate with you is naturally to obtain the help of the Zodiac Guardians. I think you should know something about our Greek tradition. There can only be one Greek guardian in every generation, and generally speaking, they are very ordinary gods. The chances of a second-level god appearing are very low, let alone a powerful main god like Athena. And Athena's god has indeed descended. Have you thought about what this means? Chiyu looked at Yamu, and his heart suddenly trembled violently. He had not thought about why Athena would descend into the west, but more than once, he had thought about why the 4 auspicious clouds Kiran would appear in Yen Huang. According to Master Zagru, the 4 auspicious clouds Kiran was unprecedented. Moreover, he was able to obtain such powerful strength by chance. What did this mean? After Athena's reminder, he had already understood a little in his heart. Looking at the light in Chiyu's eyes, Yamu nodded and said, Yes. 4 powerful beings like you and me to descend into this world, there must be a mission. And our mission is to protect our common home. The image I saw when I was born was the scene of our world facing a disaster. Disaster? Chiyu frowned. You can't be telling me that we are the common saviors of Earth, right? That's too ridiculous. I don't want to be a savior. I'm not interested. Yamu shook her head and said, I don't know if we are the saviors, but what I do know is that a huge crisis will definitely descend. Although this crisis might not threaten ordinary humans, but for people like us it is absolutely catastrophic. And to overcome this crisis, we might be able to do it with our own strength, but the chances are only 50-50. So I thought of cooperation, and I hope to be able to cooperate with you. If possible, both for us and for you, there will be great benefit. Chiyu listened to Yamu. He could not help but feel a little impatient. Yamu, actually, it doesn't matter to me whether we cooperate or not. Although I don't like you Constellation Guardians. But I don't hate you. At least compared to those people from the Vatican, you are much stronger. If you really want to cooperate with us, I won't object. But as for the details of the cooperation, we will have to discuss it carefully. But I hope your goal is not to use us. Otherwise, I think my counterattack will not be as disastrous as what you said. Yamu sighed. Chiyu, you still can't trust me. But it's no wonder. If you say something similar to me, I will also consider it carefully. Since I have said this, I think our conversation can end here. I know that you must be very curious about the divine power of the goddess Athena. Similarly, I am also very curious about the king of the Zodiac, Kiran. Why don't we have a spar? I think this will be equally beneficial to both of us. Hearing Yamu say this, Chiyu could not help but feel excited. At his level of strength, it was undoubtedly very difficult to improve through actual combat. After all, where could he find so many powerful opponents? This era was not like the ancient beast era, where it was easy to find a 10,000-year-old ancient beast. If he wanted to find a suitable opponent, he might as well train more to improve his thundercloud force. And Yamu was obviously one of the few super experts in this era who could be a match for Chiyu. To be able to spar with her, the benefits were obvious. Here? Chiyu looked at the surrounding night sky. Yamu said, although this is our spiritual world, there is no difference from a real fight. If you feel that I have too much of an advantage in Parthenon, we can also change places. Shaking his head, Chiyu said, no need, let's do it here. If it is somewhere else, I am afraid that we will not be able to control our strength in the spiritual realm. Do you want your Greek president to think that a nuclear bomb has exploded in Athens? Saying this, he could not help but laugh. Indeed, with their strength, if they really fought, the destructive power of the battle would not be much worse than a nuclear bomb. Yamu smiled and said, Please advise me. With a faint smile, her delicate body had already floated backward. In the blink of an eye, Yamu had already appeared 100 meters away, facing Chiyu from afar. Faint golden light slowly condensed on her hands. In her right hand was the scepter of the goddess of victory, and in her left hand was the golden shield of the goddess of victory. The huge golden light dyed Yamu's body like the sun, releasing a dazzling brilliance. The energy that she released was pure energy, without a trace of other aura. However, it was this pure energy that brought a special kind of pressure to Chiyu's spirit. It was also a huge pressure. As Yamu's body released the divine light, Chiyu's body also began to change. He knew that he was not facing a beautiful girl, but the goddess of war and wisdom in Greek mythology. How could he be the slightest bit careless? The black Kirin armor silently replaced the clothes on Chiyu's body. The battle in the spiritual realm was no different from a real battle, and it was even more dangerous. A faint energy aura seeped out of Chiyu's body, and he completely transformed the 4 types of thundercloud force in his body into the most basic energy of Kirin. This was because he was very clear that he was facing Athena's divine power, which did not have any other attributes. His 4 types of thundercloud force attributes were useless. His long silver hair spread over his shoulders, and Chi-Yu's originally tall body looked even more majestic. If Yamu floated there like a pure angel, then Chi-Yu at this time was like an arrogant demon. A dark red cloak appeared behind Chi-Yu. The first stage of origin mutation had completely increased his combat power. The Kirin mirror quietly appeared on his left forearm, and his right hand had an additional 5-meter-long spear. Yamu's purple eyes disappeared in the golden light, and she raised the victory goddess scepter high above her head. A golden ray of light soared into the sky, bringing endless light to the pitch-black night sky. Shrouded in the golden light, Yamu was still floating there, but her aura had become completely different. Chi-Yu could clearly feel that every star in the night sky was continuously infusing energy into the golden light that filled the world. The huge golden light became more and more intense, enveloping the world. It enveloped the world, and the enormous pressure made Chi-Yu clearly feel that the eye of rain in front of him had become even more sacred. The word domain suddenly appeared in Chi-Yu's mind. He had never seen a domain like Yamu's. However, it also made Chi-Yu vigilant. One had to know that all the domains that he had seen before, including the Bull Demon King's domain, were all activated with his own energy. And they were activated with his own energy as the foundation. It was the same for his 2 domains, and the domain that Yamu used in front of him was actually formed with the power of the stars in the sky. Fundamentally speaking, it had surpassed his domain in terms of level. Such a domain was also limited to the energy of the stars, and once it couldn't connect with the energy of the stars, it would lose its effect. However, at this moment, the power it displayed was undoubtedly huge. Chi-Yu knew that he couldn't wait any longer. Otherwise, he would have to face the true power of this domain in the next moment. The silver light, set off by the black energy, quickly gathered in Chi-Yu's right arm from all over his body. The silver lightning caused the energy around Chi-Yu's body to completely distort. Amidst the distortion, it actually forcibly blocked the pressure brought by Yamu's unknown domain, allowing Chi-Yu to fully unleash the power of his own energy. The muscles on Kirin's arm continued to swell, and Kirin's origin mutation actually entered the second stage under the influence of the huge pressure around him. The swelling body and Kirin's armor made Chi-Yu look even more majestic. Black Kirin's wings appeared on his back, lifting Kirin into the air. At this moment, a huge amount of energy completely condensed in Kirin's arm. The spear in Chi-Yu's hand was originally as black as Kirin's armor. However, as Kirin's origin energy continued to condense, the black spear transformed from Kirin's illusion actually turned pure silver. When the distorted light gathered on the silver spear, the light was no longer distorted. Moreover, there was not a single trace of energy appearing on the spear. All the energy was completely compressed by Chi-Yu into Kirin's illusion. This concentrated attack was the main purpose of his attack. At his and Yamu's level of strength, techniques were no longer important. Absolute strength was the best way to measure the difference in strength between the two of them. Fighting with Yamu was completely different from fighting with the Bull Demon King. The Bull Demon King's strength was something that Chi-Yu couldn't compare with. Similarly, Yamu couldn't compare with the Bull Demon King either. Therefore, when facing the Bull Demon King, Chi-Yu could only rely on his intelligence and a lot of luck to barely hold on for a short period of time. When he faced Yamu, the gap between the two of them was far less huge than when he faced the Bull Demon King. Even they themselves didn't know who was stronger. Therefore, at the beginning of the fight, they had tacitly chosen to collide with energy. The seemingly simple fighting style was actually not that simple. After all, no one could take advantage of such a fighting style. At the same time, this kind of fighting style also tested their degree of control over their own energy. The silver spear appeared in the hands of Chi-Yu's black figure, making Chi-Yu look even cooler. The demon-like figure didn't reveal a single trace of emotion in this duel between the strong and the strong. The muscles on Kirin's arms bulged, and the feeling of being filled with power made it seem as though he would explode at any time. Traces of silver electricity surrounded the black patterns on Kirin's armor and trembled continuously. Kirin's origin energy had been raised to its peak by Chi-Yu at this moment. Confrontation. With a roar, Chi-Yu finally made his move. At this moment, the domain released by Yamu made it so that he couldn't see the starry sky outside the golden light. Chi-Yu didn't know what the huge domain was capable of, and he didn't want to know at this moment either. As he shouted the first word of the 9 symbolic words, the silver spear was thrown out like a javelin. Using his full strength, Chi-Yu's body was actually moved by the momentum. After spinning in the air, he used Kirin's wings on his back to stabilize his body. The silver spear didn't move in a straight line in the air. Instead, it drew a beautiful arc. It didn't move at the speed of lightning as expected. Instead, it was like a lazy bird, slowly falling in Yamu's direction. The reason why the silver spear that Kirin had transformed into didn't move in a straight line was that when it was launched, it had already started spinning rapidly under the control of Chi-Yu's huge mental strength. The extremely strong rotation gave it the ability to move in an arc. As it moved forward slowly and rotated, the silver spear actually resolved all the interference caused by Yamu's golden domain. Although it couldn't really destroy this domain, Yamu's domain couldn't affect it at all while it was moving forward. Floating there, Yamu didn't show any panic. Her golden eyes revealed a hint of admiration. She didn't use her shield. Instead, she raised the scepter of the goddess of victory and pointed it at the silver spear flying in the air. Chapter 181. When the golden victory goddess scepter was brandished, countless rays of golden light in the air instantly condensed into the scepter. In an instant, the tip of the victory goddess scepter had condensed into a dazzling smooth mass. There was no explosion. When the silver and gold collided, it brought about an incomparably intense shockwave. With the point of collision as the center, the entire space became completely distorted. At this moment, the silver spear actually emitted a brilliant brilliance, and an incomparably powerful penetrative power completely erupted. The energy condensed on the scepter of the goddess of victory was gradually being penetrated by the silver light it released. The silver spear had already begun to penetrate the golden light. Yamu's eyes revealed a trace of surprise, but her actions did not change. At this moment, the condensed golden light in the air instantly became stronger, and an endless amount of energy continued to condense in the golden victory goddess scepter, continuously increasing the energy of the scepter. Chi-Yu finally knew what this realm was for. At the very least, he knew one of its functions. The energy from the stars could be completely transformed into Yamu's own energy. The main function of this domain seemed to be a filtering and transformation process. This was simply too terrifying. What he had to face was not just Yamu alone, but Yamu and the energy emitted by all the stars. Would he be able to win such a battle? Chi Yu's doubts about his strength only lasted for less than a second. After all, he had faced too many battles. Against enemies stronger than him, he had won more than once by relying on various favorable conditions. Even the powerful Bull Demon King had been subdued by his life and death domain. Although Yamu, who had inherited the divinity of Athena, was powerful, it was not a match for Yamu. But it wasn't enough to make him lose confidence in himself. The wings on his back flapped in an instant, leaving behind a series of blurry shadows. With the ability to soar up 90,000 miles, Chi Yu pounced towards Yamu at lightning speed. At this moment, Yamu's victory goddess scepter and Chi Yu's silver spear had reached the final stage of their struggle. As a matter of fact, when the scepter of the goddess of victory withstood the powerful impact and tearing effect of the silver spear, there was no longer any suspense in the fight between the two energies. Chi Yu's all-out attack was indeed terrifying. However, the scepter of the goddess of victory had an endless supply of energy to support it. When Chi Yu was less than 10 meters away from Yamu, he knew it was time to end the energy confrontation. Otherwise, the attack that consumed a large amount of his thundercloud force would be completely dissolved by Yamu's continuous absorption of energy. Therefore, he chose the ultimate tearing technique, burst. Amidst the loud bang, countless silver lights and shadows scattered in the air. Yamu and Chi Yu groaned almost at the same time. The scepter of the goddess of victory trembled slightly, and the energy that it had been absorbing in a short period of time disappeared temporarily under the powerful explosion of the silver spear. The violent energy was like a tornado, releasing a huge shock wave with the explosion as the center. Chi Yu's body, which was rushing forward, also chose to fall at this time. The center of the explosion was naturally much closer to Yamu than to Chi Yu. Chi Yu could stay away from the center of the explosion, but Yamu couldn't. Under the huge impact, she raised the round shield on her left hand, and a golden light was released in the form of circular ripples, completely enveloping her body. And when the shockwave hit the round shield, a strange scene appeared. The round shield was like a black hole, completely devouring the energy that attacked it, and the energy aura released by the round shield became stronger. A divine artifact. It was definitely a divine artifact. Chi Yu had already made the most accurate judgment in an instant. Whether it was the scepter of the goddess of victory in Yamu's right hand, or the round shield in her left hand, which belonged to goddess Athena. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that easy for her to block his attack. His brain was judging Yamu's strength, but Chi Yu didn't stop moving. His body descended, and when the shock wave left his previous position, his body was already in front of Yamu with the help of Kirin's wings. This time, he was only 5 meters away from Yamu. Chi Yu didn't attack Yamu directly. His right hand, which had lost its spear, now had a 3-foot-long broadsword, and a silver light was released from his body. After rising about 3 meters, the silk-like silver light suddenly erupted, and a silver light shield immediately enveloped Yamu and Chi Yu, who was rushing toward him. "You can use a realm, but I can't?" What Chi Yu wanted to do was very simple. With the energy immunity silver dragon shield, he confined himself and Yamu in this narrow space. Based on the all-out battle just now, Chi Yu guessed that Yamu could use the ability of her realm to continuously borrow energy from the stars. If he allowed her to absorb energy like that, it would definitely be disadvantageous to him. Only by isolating her from the energy absorption realm could he have a chance of winning. At the same time, although Yamu's control of energy was exquisite, it didn't mean that she was strong in close combat. If he got close to her and relied on his actual combat experience, the scales of victory would very likely tilt. Therefore, when the silver spear was blocked by Yamu's scepter of the goddess of victory, Chi Yu had already made the clearest judgment. What he had used was the energy immunity silver dragon shield. The energy immunity of the silver dragon shield was not only targeted at the living beings within the realm, but also at external energy. Therefore, when the energy from the stars gathered towards Yamu again, it was immediately blocked by the silver dragon shield. Due to the special nature of the silver dragon shield, the energy could not even cause it to tremble. Yamu looked at Chi-Yu in surprise. "Is this your realm? It's really amazing." Chi-Yu smiled faintly and said, "There's only one special characteristic of my realm, and that is energy immunity. Let me experience Athena's close combat ability. What do you think?" Yamu smiled mysteriously and said, "As the goddess of war and wisdom, Athena's strength is not only in energy. I think you'll understand it very soon." As she spoke, she held the shield in her left hand horizontally in front of her body. She pointed the scepter of the goddess of victory in her right hand at Chi-Yu's chest. Due to the silver dragon shield, the golden light that was released from her body was completely restrained. Although the energy aura on the scepter of the goddess of victory was still strong, it was only maintained within the relic. As a special realm, the silver dragon shield had fully revealed its use. Chi-Yu put away the Kirin mirror in his left hand. Although the Kirin mirror's defensive ability was very good, Chi-Yu knew that it was inferior to Yamu's golden round shield. Compared to Yamu's golden round shield, the Kirin mirror was much inferior. The Western relic might not be comparable to the Eastern relic, but judging from the defensive ability of the golden round shield just now, he was very clear about the power of the Western relic. Moreover, although the defense of the Kirin mirror was not bad, it would also affect his flexibility in close combat. The space that he covered with the silver dragon shield was very knowledgeable. It happened to be in an area where Yamu's long scepter of the goddess of victory could not unleash the attack power of a long weapon, and it did not affect his speed of movement. After a simple conversation, Chi-Yu's second wave of attack had already begun. Stepping on the Kirin mirror, Chi-Yu moved the broadsword in his hand forward and slid to the side of Yamu. The light on the blade of his sword flickered as he slid towards Yamu's shoulder. The light in Yamu's eyes became calm again. She held the round shield in her left hand horizontally, blocking Chi-Yu's attack. She let go of the scepter of the goddess of victory in her right hand, allowing the relic to slide down. When the long handle of the scepter slid down halfway, she grabbed it again. With a wave of her wrist, a circle of golden light had already attacked Chi-Yu's chest with a wave of the scepter of the goddess of victory. Looking at Yamu's reaction, Chi-Yu could not help but be shocked. She could so quickly give up the characteristics of the scepter of the goddess of victory as a long weapon, and use the middle as the grip point to reduce the attack range of the scepter of the goddess of victory by more than half. However, it was no longer restricted by the silver dragon shield. It could be seen that Yamu was not bad in actual combat. There was a buzzing sound. Kirin's illusory long sword was bounced back by the round shield. Chi-Yu was surprised to find that the golden round shield did not seem to be made of metal. When Kirin's illusory slash hit it, it was as if it had hit a thick cowhide. The strong elasticity caused it to bounce back, and not even a trace was left on the golden round shield. Yamu's attack had already arrived. Chi-Yu did not think of fighting her head-on. Not only did the scepter of the goddess of victory look beautiful, but the ring at the top of the scepter had already turned into a sharp blade. If he was really attacked by it, he was afraid that even the second-stage Kirin armor might not be able to withstand it. However, Chi-Yu still had Kirin swim. With a step, Chi-Yu's body spun around Yamu like an illusion. With a few elegant and easy movements, he had already flashed out of the attack of the scepter of the goddess of victory, causing the golden light to slash into thin air. At the same time, the long sword in Chi-Yu's hand had already turned into tens of thousands of light spots, attacking Yamu's body from all angles at the same time. The sound of explosions kept coming from within the silver dragon shield. The Kirin in Chi-Yu's hands had collided with Yamu's round shield countless times. If it was just a round shield, it was almost impossible for Yamu to resist Chi-Yu's comprehensive attack. At this time, Chi-Yu's body technique showed its advantage. The omnipresent attack covered almost every blind spot. Even though Yamu's round shield had a diameter of half a meter, It was impossible for her to take care of every position. However, she still had the scepter of the goddess of victory in her hand. Holding the middle part of Yamu's body, she spun the scepter of the goddess of victory in her hand. With the length of the scepter of the goddess of victory, she easily transformed a shield that was much larger than the golden round shield beside her, blocking a large number of attacks from Chi-Yu. Every time the Kirin fantasy came into contact with the scepter of the goddess of victory or the golden round shield, there would be a buzzing sound. As the former head of the Kirin octatic treasures, this treasure of the Kirin clan also had a soul, and it had already recognized Chi-Yu as its master. Chi-Yu could clearly sense that it was actually letting out waves of whining. The energy that came from the scepter of the goddess of victory and the golden round shield was actually too much for the Kirin fantasy to bear. The energy that came from the two artifacts of Yamu only had one characteristic, and that was collapse. The powerful vibrations caused the illusory Qilin to be constantly stimulated. Coupled with Chi-Yu's excessively powerful attacks, the illusory Qilin had to bear a huge burden for a short period of time. Although there was no support from the stars, the aura of Yamu's energy did not weaken at all. In the continuous battle with Chi-Yu, she was very calm. Although each of her movements looked so elegant, it did not affect her performance in terms of speed at all. She completely resisted Chi-Yu's storm-like attacks. "Good!" Chi-Yu shouted, and the long sword in his hand suddenly disappeared. His body floated around, and he appeared on the other side of Yamu. His feet tapped on the silver dragon shield, and with the help of the rebound, he suddenly rushed to the side of Yamu and shouted, "Bing!" Kirin's arm flashed with black and silver light, and with surging energy, Chi-Yu bombarded Yamu's golden round shield with his fist. In the midst of the loud bang, Chi-Yu's body trembled violently. He was shocked to find that the power of his Kirin's arm, which originally did not disperse, had actually spread to every corner of the round shield after coming into contact with the golden round shield. The energy produced by the golden round shield had actually formed countless small vortexes inside the shield, devouring his explosive energy. A strong holy aura came from the shield, causing Chi-Yu's body to bounce back violently. After entering the silver dragon shield, his body slowed down for the first time. "Your close combat skills are indeed very strong," Yamu's voice sounded. Just when Chi-Yu thought that she was going to take this opportunity to attack him, Yamu's body suddenly retreated. "Is she going easy on me?" A trace of doubt rose in Chi-Yu's heart, but he soon realized that he had guessed wrong. In the next moment, the golden round shield in Yamu's left hand had disappeared. She, who was holding the victory goddess scepter with both hands, turned her body leisurely, and slashed the scepter horizontally to her side. "Not good." Chi-Yu cried out in his heart, but at this time, he was already powerless to stop it. With a flash of light, Yamu's body had already easily stuck to the silver dragon shield, and the golden ring at the head of the victory goddess scepter had already turned into a sharp blade. Amidst the ear-piercing sound of friction, it slashed heavily into the silver dragon shield. As expected of a divine artifact, the sharpness of the victory goddess scepter actually broke through the silver dragon shield in an instant. In the next moment, a sky full of scepter shadows appeared in front of Chi-Yu's eyes. Not only did it stop his pursuit, but it also shattered the silver dragon shield. Yumao had proven to Chi-Yu that not only did she possess an extremely high level of control over her energy, she was also not the slightest bit weak in close combat. With the divine artifact and her own strength, she finally broke Chi-Yu's domain. Chi-Yu knew that he could not use the same technique on Yamu again, so he did not replenish the silver dragon shield. His body floated backward, allowing Yamu to reappear in the golden domain and fully absorb the energy from the stars. "You are indeed very strong, much stronger than I imagined," Chi-Yu praised sincerely. Yamu smiled and said, "Aren't you the same? You are also stronger than I imagined. Under your close combat attack, I did not even have a chance to fight back. If you did not insist on testing the defense of my shield, it would have been very difficult for me to find a chance to break through your domain. Qi Yu laughed bitterly and said, with the two divine artifacts and the energy you absorbed before, your energy is not inferior to mine. Moreover, as the main attacker, my energy consumption is far greater than yours. If this continues, when I am exhausted, I will be defeated by you. It is better to take a risk. The advantage of a divine artifact is really great. Now I also understand why you said that it would be very difficult for me to defeat you in Parthenon. I think this domain that you used has a lot to do with Parthenon. Yamu allowed the abundant energy to enter her body as she nodded at Qi Yu. She said, "Not bad, your judgment is very correct. In Parthenon, my energy will increase by several times. And I will save a third of the time when I use any of my abilities. At the same time, this is also the easiest place to connect with the energy of the signs of the Zodiac. Here, I can make full use of the 12 Zodiac temples to help me, and produce a large amount of energy. Unless you can increase your attack power to more than twice my full power in an instant, as long as I can absorb the energy of the signs of the Zodiac, it will be very difficult for you to defeat me. This domain is called the signs of the Zodiac. Its mysteries are condensed from the perfect wisdom of the goddess Athena. It is also the only and strongest trump card of the goddess of war and wisdom. The various changes within it are extremely rich. Once I enter this domain, I am destined to be in an invincible position." Qi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "You have already broken through my domain. I also want to try and see if I can break through your domain." Yama was stunned for a moment and said, "I did not expect you to be so competitive. Why don't we end today's battle here? You have completely shown me your strength. I admit that even the 3 constellation guardians will not be able to win against your powerful attack. I am afraid it will be difficult for you to win." Qi Yu smiled and said, "Our spar has just begun. Isn't that so? Since you have already let me see the divine power of the goddess Athena and the divine weapon she possesses, if I continue to keep it to myself, it would be somewhat unkind of me." Yama looked at Qi Yu in shock and said, "Don't tell me you want to use that ability again. I admit that it was very difficult for me to block that attack of yours. However, it is not very possible for you to truly hurt me. At the same time, if I am not wrong, although that kind of attack can raise your strength to the peak, the damage to your body should not be small. We are only sparring. I do not wish to see you get hurt, and I do not wish to see you go missing for another half a year." Qi Yu laughed and said, "So you are afraid that I will use the ultimate Kirin arm? Then don't worry, I am not that stupid. To tell you the truth, that move is used to put my life on the line. Unless it is absolutely necessary, why would I use it? What I want to show you is the divine weapon that belongs to the East. As the king of the Zodiac Guardians, if I do not have some ability, how would I dare to spar with the goddess Athena?" The faint light gradually converged, and the Kirin wings of Qi Yu gradually retracted. His gaze became sharper, and his eyes turned completely silver. A familiar feeling suddenly appeared in Yamu's heart, reminding her of the scene outside Parthenon. At that time, Qi Yu's body emitted a sharp energy that broke through her gentle divine power, causing the two of them to have physical contact. At this time, the sharp energy appeared again. Compared to the last time, the sharp energy this time was even more intense. Standing in front of Qi Yu, Yamu was shocked to find that she actually could not withstand it. His silver eyes gradually turned golden, and a huge golden shadow dyed his body. The golden shadow soared into the sky and separated from Qi Yu's body. The next moment, his right hand was raised high and his palm slowly clenched. A huge golden sword had appeared out of thin air in his hand. The moment the huge sword appeared, the sharp feeling suddenly became more obvious. Yamu had no choice but to use her divine power to block the round shield in front of her body. Only then did she barely resist the attack of the sharp qi. However, she was shocked to find that there were a few strands of long purple hair scattered on her forehead. The invisible sharpness was so sharp that Yamu's expression could not help but change. Raising his head and looking at the Xianyuan divine sword in his hand, Qi Yu's eyes were filled with a dazzling light. One side is engraved with the sun, moon, and stars, while the other side is engraved with the mountains, rivers, and plants. This is the peerless divine sword that was once used by our legendary ancestor, His Majesty, Huang Emperor. Hearing Qi Yu's words, Yamu seemed to remember something. Her voice became slightly shrill as she cried out involuntarily, "The Xianyuan sword. Could this be the legendary Xianyuan sword of the East?" With a smile, Qi Yu shifted his gaze from the Xianyuan sword to Yamu. "That's right. This is the Xianyuan sword, and I am its new owner." Yamu looked a little flustered. The appearance of the Xianyuan sword had completely messed up her judgment of Qi Yu, even though she had always known that Qi Yu was powerful. However, when the Xianyuan sword appeared in Qi Yu's hand, Yamu understood that this man from the east in front of her, no matter in any aspect, they were already standing on the same level as him. The slight contempt he had previously had completely disappeared, and the energy that came from the 12 Zodiac palaces quickly grew stronger. "I didn't expect to see the most powerful weapon in the East, the Xianyuan sword, in my lifetime. Qi Yu, you've given me too many surprises. If my guess is correct, your disappearance for half a year should have something to do with this peerless divine sword." Qi Yu smiled and said, "It seems that you have not only inherited Athena's battle prowess, but you have also inherited her battle prowess. At the same time, you have also inherited Athena's wisdom. You're right. My disappearance for half a year can indeed be said to have something to do with the Xianyuan sword." To Qi Yu, the 6 months he had spent in the ancient beast era, his greatest gain was undoubtedly this peerless divine sword. With the Xianyuan sword and without the Xianyuan sword, his strength was definitely two different concepts. Even without the Xianyuan sword's powerful ability, the Xianyuan 8 arts, the Xianyuan sword was also a powerful weapon. Kiran's illusion trembled under the attack of Athena's magical weapon. This made Qi Yu understand the importance of an offensive magical weapon. As the representative of the East, although he was only sparring with Yamu, he would never allow himself to be at a disadvantage. For the sake of Kiran's dignity, for the sake of the guardian of the East, for the sake of Yan Huang's dignity, he would never allow himself to be at a disadvantage. For the sake of Yan Huang's dignity, he summoned the Xianyuan sword. Surprisingly, this time, the aura of Xuanyuan's soul was completely restrained, and the control of the Xianyuan sword was completely handed over to him. Yamu took a deep breath, and the light in her eyes became much sharper. To be able to fight with the Xianyuan sword, whether I win or lose, today's sparring is enough to satisfy Yamu. "King of the Zodiac, please." Qi Yu smiled and said, "Goddess Athena, please." In the next moment, both of their bodies moved at the same time. However, Qi Yu's movement was forward, while Yamu's movement was backward. The golden light in the air suddenly became stronger, and a huge golden shadow appeared in front of Qi Yu. He was surprised to find that it was a humanoid warrior, but his body was completely formed by energy. On the warrior's head, there was a pair of huge white horns, and his body was covered with a layer of golden armor. The huge energy aura was so real. The energy that was gathering towards Yamu from all directions was instantly divided into 1/12 and integrated into the warrior's body, causing his energy aura to become even stronger. Damn, this can't be an Aries gold saint, right? Although he knew that saints did not exist, when Qi Yu saw this special energy warrior in front of him, he could not help but think so. The Aries gold saint did not give Qi Yu any time to hesitate. In the next moment, his tall figure was already in front of Qi Yu. The space around him suddenly distorted, and the gold saint instantly transformed into countless figures, and from different directions, they rushed towards Qi Yu with great pressure. He lowered his head, and the pair of huge white horns was his weapon of attack. Qi Yu's eyes lit up, and his mouth revealed a hint of arrogance. He did not dodge, and he did not even use Kirin's swim. He held the hilt of the Xianyuan divine sword with both of his hands, and with the belt on his back on his arm, and his arm on his hand, he spun around without any fancy moves. The huge Xianyuan divine sword left a golden light trail in the air, and met the attack of the gold saint. After a full rotation, Qi Yu once again resumed his previous forward motion. The huge Xianyuan sword was held in his right hand and pointed diagonally to his side. The distorted space around his body actually stopped at this moment. This strange scene caused Yu Mao's eyes to widen uncontrollably, making her purple eyes even more obvious. At this time, her heart had already sunk, because she had lost the presence of the gold saint. A light ding sounded from the Xianyuan sword like a dragon's roar. Immediately after, the distorted space around Qi Yu's body shattered. Yes, shattered like a picture. Countless fragments turned into specks of golden light in the air and drifted away, not leaving a trace behind. Yamu took a deep breath. Although she knew that the attack power of the Xianyuan divine sword was terrifying, the Aries warrior that she created with the help of the signs of the Zodiac domain might not be as strong as the constellation guardian of the Aries constellation, but with the support of the energy of the signs of the Zodiac, the Aries warrior's combat power and defense were extremely shocking. However, in front of Qi Yu's Xianyuan divine sword, the Aries warrior was shattered into pieces before it could even complete its attack. In fact, even Qi Yu himself did not expect such a good result. Other than facing the Bull Demon King, this was the first time he truly used the Xianyuan divine sword. Only by truly experiencing it could he clearly feel the power of the divine weapon. With the injection of thundercloud force, the attack power of the Xianyuan divine sword was greatly increased. The sharp aura of the sword instantly shattered the Aries warrior that was formed from energy. However, the battle was not over yet. Or rather, it had just begun. Golden lights shone from different directions at the same time. The signs of the Zodiac divine sword appeared at the same time. Every warrior was wearing golden armor like the Aries warrior from before. The helmet on their heads completely covered their faces. In the next moment, they attacked Qi Yu. Even the Aries warrior that was killed by Qi Yu previously appeared again. The signs of the Zodiac divine sword and the 12 gold-tier warriors attacked Qi Yu at the same time. The signs of the Zodiac 12 constellations were the energy source of the 12 gold-tier warriors. Yamu had lost the ability to absorb energy. However, with the help of the signs of the Zodiac domain, the 12 powerful warriors did not need to consume any of her energy. Qi Yu could not help but gasp in amazement at the power of such a divine weapon. Without the Xianyuan divine sword, if Qi Yu wanted to break through the 12 gold-tier warriors, he would probably have to rely on the 1,000 changes technique of the Zodiac domain. However, he was already enveloped by the signs of the Zodiac domain from his ancestor Yum. It was hard to say if the 1,000 changes technique of the Zodiac domain would be able to exert its power. However, with the Xianyuan sword, everything was different. It was not the first time that Qi Yu encountered a situation where he had to fight against many. When the 12 gold-tier warriors appeared in different directions, Qi Yu moved. He stepped on Kirin and held the Xianyuan sword with both hands. At this moment, he was the most powerful warrior. Chapter 182. The gold-tier warriors were all defeated in just 3 seconds. They did not even cause any damage to Qi Yu. However, after the first wave of gold-tier warriors disappeared, another wave of gold-tier warriors appeared. It was the same 3 seconds. It was the same total annihilation. Qi Yu destroyed the gold-tier warriors again. However, his advance was delayed by 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough for Yamu to do a lot of things. The gold-tier warriors appeared one after another. With the support of the astral energy, they were endless. Although Qi Yu could quickly absorb the energy molecules in the air to replenish himself with the energy of the origin of nature, the Xianyuan sword was a divine weapon after all. It required a lot of energy. Chi-Yu understood that Yamu did not rely on these gold-tier warriors to defeat him. She wanted to exhaust his energy. As long as these gold-tier warriors could hold on for a little longer, he would still be the loser in the signs of the Zodiac territory. However, could these gold-tier warriors really trap him? On the surface, the gold-tier warriors were like paper in front of Chi-Yu's Xianyuan sword. However, in reality, each of these gold-tier warriors had extremely strong attack power. They could almost easily cause damage to Chi-Yu. Therefore, Chi-Yu could only destroy them as soon as they appeared. He did not give them a chance to unleash their power. This way, he would not be hurt and save his own energy. However, if this continued, the endless gold-tier warriors would put him at an absolute disadvantage. Chi-Yu wasn't an idiot. On the contrary, he was extremely talented in battle. Back when he had fought against the Bull Demon King, he was able to become the final victor. Although luck had a lot to do with him, it was also inseparable from his understanding of battles. As he continued to destroy the gold-tier warriors, Chi-Yu carefully observed Yamu's movements. At this moment, Yamu was like the statue in Parthenon. She stood there calmly with a shield in her left hand and a staff in her right. She calmly looked in her direction as a faint golden light slowly circulated around her body. An invisible pressure was constantly released from her body. However, she had no intention of attacking him. If Yamu were to join the gold-tier warriors' attack on Chi-Yu, she would undoubtedly pose a great threat to him. However, if that was the case, Chi-Yu would also get the chance to fight Yamu. He really wanted to see if his Xianyuan sword was sharper. Yamu's Athena divine weapon was stronger. However, Yamu did not give him the chance. Since the other party didn't want to give him a chance, he would have to create one himself. In a flash, Chi-Yu finally changed his strategy. When he destroyed another 12 gold-tier warriors, before the next wave of gold-tier warriors could reach him, he raised the Xianyuan sword high in the air, and the cloud power in his body began to circulate at a high speed. The Xianyuan sword seemed to like Chi-Yu's compressed thundercloud force. The sword was surging as the thundercloud force was injected into it. At the same time, the sword in Chi-Yu's hand slashed forward as if it was going to split the sky and the earth. He slashed horizontally. A semicircle of light was instantly enlarged on the surface of the Xianyuan sword. The sharp aura of energy was unleashed. The 6 gold-tier warriors in front of him were disintegrated by the light without any chance. Under Chi-Yu's full power, the light reached Yamu in a blink of an eye. It was so fast that it was hard to see it with the naked eye. At the same time, Chi-Yu was attacked by the other 6 gold-tier warriors. Due to the excessive use of the thundercloud force, his body was delayed for a moment. A huge impact came from behind him. However, Chi-Yu didn't even turn around. He used his own body to withstand the attack. When the 6 gold-tier warriors' attack reached his back, a red light suddenly shone. The Kirin pearl on Chi-Yu's chest instantly turned red. Then, the already thick Kirin armor on his body was covered with a layer of bright red light. That's right, the Kirin armor had appeared. The multiple layers of defense had increased Chi-Yu's defense to the maximum. Coupled with the defense of the Kirin armor, when the huge impact came from behind, Chi-Yu, who was already prepared for it, used the impact from behind to launch himself forward like an arrow. The meridians in his body trembled violently under the impact of the surging energy. However, his body had been transformed by the origin of nature after all, so it was many times stronger than an ordinary person. Moreover, he had the Qilin armor, Qilin red, and Qilin stealth, the 3 great defensive magic treasures to protect his body. Therefore, the injuries he suffered at this time were very small. The golden light came in front of Yamu in the blink of an eye. The incomparably sharp energy brought great pressure to the air of the goddess Athena. It was impossible for her to dodge the attack. Moreover, she knew that she couldn't dodge the sharp Xianyuan sword forever. Without any hesitation, the golden shield had already met the energy attack from the Xianyuan sword. The golden light flashed on the shield and disappeared quietly. It didn't even cause a tremor, let alone a shock wave. The golden round shield did not seem to have suffered any damage, but Yamu's body trembled violently. The golden light emitted from her body fluctuated violently, and the panic in her eyes could not be concealed. It turned out that when the Xianyuan sword's attack collided with her golden round shield, the round shield's super-strong defense did indeed block the energy released by the Xianyuan sword. After all, it was not the Xianyuan sword itself, it was just energy. However, it was this energy that destroyed almost half of the countless energy-devouring vortexes in the golden round shield. The remaining energy even rushed into Yamu's body. If Yamu hadn't been prepared, he was afraid that this would be enough to injure her. At this moment, she completely understood. The shield of the goddess of victory was not enough to block the attack of the Xianyuan sword. It was also at this moment, using the attack of the 6 gold-tier warriors. Qi Yu's figure quickly arrived in front of Yamu. The great sword in his hand displayed a dexterity that did not match its size at all. Thousands of golden light shrouded Yamu's body, just like the attack when she used Kirin's illusion. However, after changing to the Xianyuan sword, although the attack was similar, the effect was completely different. Yamu did not block it directly. She watched as Qi Yu attacked her. Her body had already risen into the air like lightning. In the path where Qi Yu was chasing after her, the 6 gold-tier warriors that he had destroyed earlier had appeared, blocking him for a second. Using this second, Yamu had already increased the distance between her and Qi Yu. The scepter of the goddess of victory and the golden round shield disappeared at the same time. Yamu's hands formed a very special shape. She was chanting in a low voice that Qi Yu could not understand. She actually sat cross-legged in midair. At this moment, the golden light also became stronger. Just when Qi Yu was about to use the same trick and attack Yamu's body again, Yamu's body suddenly disappeared. At this moment, the holy aura that she had actually spread in midair. The signs of the Zodiac domain had completely integrated into one. Feeling the change in Yamu's energy, the expression on Qi Yu's face became extremely interesting. He was not worried, nor was he afraid. Instead, he was excited from the bottom of his heart. Yamu's action made him understand another way to use the domain. Since she could integrate her body into the domain, then he could do the same. It was not hard to imagine that doing so would definitely greatly increase the power of the domain. The 12 gold-tier warriors did not appear again after the final destruction. In the entire golden space, only Qi Yu was left floating in the air. Using this short period of time, Qi Yu quickly mobilized the thundercloud force in his body, using the great ascending cloud technique of Kirin to restore as much of the energy that he had lost. He knew that the final battle of today's sparring match was coming. Yamu must be using some kind of ultimate move to deal with him. To Qi Yu, his biggest advantage now was not the Xianyuan sword in his hand, but the art of 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm that he had yet to use. At the beginning of the battle, he had already thought it through very clearly. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not use his art of 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm. It was always a good thing to be able to preserve some of his strength and not let others know about it. At this moment, deep Sanskrit chants suddenly sounded from all directions. Qi Yu was a little surprised to sense the aura around him. The Sanskrit chants were very feminine and seemed to be coming from Yamu's mouth. However, it was obvious that the Sanskrit chants were not Buddhist chants. Instead, it was a unique sound. To be precise, it seemed like a spell. When the spell reached its end, perhaps Yamu deliberately wanted Qi Yu to understand it. Her calm voice appeared without warning. Forbidden. Aria of the 12 Palaces. In the space, the 12 constellations that had disappeared in the golden light gradually appeared. The original golden space had also turned into the black night sky again. Did Yamu remove her domain? The answer was, of course, no. In the dark night sky, the 12 constellations that had turned golden looked very obvious. A huge circular pattern gradually appeared in the dark night sky, and Chi Yu's position was right in the middle of this huge circular pattern. He was surprised to find that this huge circular pattern was exactly the same as the one on the ground of the Parthenon temple. The 12 constellations that were flickering with golden light had also arrived at their corresponding positions in the pattern. Chi Yu's heart trembled. He quickly moved his body, but the pattern below him seemed to be stuck to him. No matter how he moved, the pattern always moved around his body. When the 12 constellations were completely integrated into the whole pattern, all the lines on the pattern suddenly lit up. In the dark night sky, it was even more dazzling. Chi Yu did not continue moving because he knew it was useless. He could not help but feel a little puzzled as he felt the change in the energy under his feet. The energy of the 12 constellations was so huge that even the Bull Demon King could not resist it. He was puzzled. Even if Yamu was the successor of the goddess Athena, how could she have such a huge amount of energy? If she really had such a huge amount of energy, then why would she still need to cooperate with him? No, there must be some secret here. This energy should not all belong to Yamu. Chi Yu's brain was working at high speed at this moment. He knew that if he made a slight mistake, he would lose this match. The Xianyuan sword in his hand did not attack again. Since Yamu still used the ability of the signs of the Zodiac after witnessing the power of the Xianyuan sword, it meant that she had a way to restrain his Xianyuan sword. If that was the case, why would he waste his energy so easily? When the 12 constellations were completely integrated into the pattern, the huge pattern of the signs of the Zodiac began to rotate slowly. The golden light dazzled Chi Yu. As the huge pattern rotated, a huge pressure with a tearing and strangling energy began to press against Chi Yu's body. Chi Yu, this is the main body of the signs of the Zodiac domain. It is also one of the most powerful abilities of the signs of the Zodiac. It is called the Aria of the 12 houses. The pressure will gradually increase with the rotation of the 12 zodiac signs. If you use energy to resist, then the rotation will slow down a little, and when your energy is exhausted, your body will fuse with it, which means you will disappear from this world. Therefore, if you feel that you can't resist the signs of the zodiac, please tell me and I will remove its restraint on you. Yamu's voice sounded a little weak. The ultimate ability of the signs of the zodiac domain was a huge burden on her. After taking a deep breath, Chi Yu smiled faintly and said, "It is indeed a powerful domain. The signs of the zodiac domain is the most unique and powerful one I have seen. However, Yamu, I have a question for you. If we weren't in Parthenon today, would you have been able to activate the signs of the zodiac domain to trap me in such a short time?" Yamu's gentle voice was heard. The signs of the zodiac domain, Chi Yu, perhaps you still don't understand the true meaning of the signs of the zodiac domain. That's right, I did make use of the energy produced in Parthenon and the close relationship with the signs of the zodiac 12 zodiac constellations to activate this domain so quickly. However, the signs of the zodiac domain is not a complete domain. It is only a part of the entire domain. If we were in a different place and we had to fight it out, my domain would change accordingly. The signs of the zodiac domain in its complete form is far more powerful than this incomplete form. At the same time, the speed of its activation will only be faster. After listening to Yamu's words, Chi Yu suddenly understood something. He said in shock, "Then, does this mean that the signs of the zodiac domain is actually based on the 12 zodiac guardians?" Yamu did not answer immediately. She was silent for a while before saying, "Yes. You are really smart. However, I really don't want you to be too smart." Chi Yu knew that his guess was correct. This should be one of the strongest abilities of the zodiac guardians led by Athena. Now that he had seen through it, Yamu probably wanted to kill him. Since this is not the signs of the zodiac domain, could it be that I can't break through it? Thinking of this, Chi Yu's heart was filled with heroism. Feeling the increasingly powerful strangulation force, He slowly closed his eyes and no longer looked at the dazzling golden light. The dark red light finally appeared. Facing the strongest attack of the signs of the Zodiac domain, Qi Yu could no longer hold back. However, what surprised him was that when his 1,000 possibilities ever-changing Xuanji realm technique appeared, it was actually restricted within the circle in the middle of the signs of the Zodiac pattern. It could not expand outwards to encircle the entire 12 Zodiac signs. Yamu's surprised voice sounded. I didn't expect you to have a second domain. It seems that I have underestimated you. Perhaps you should have used this domain earlier. The battle between us was still 50-50. Unfortunately, it was too late. When the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces entered its normal rotation, no domain could break out of its restricted range. This domain is not in the form of energy. The signs of the Zodiac 12 Zodiac constellations are the foundation. Even if your energy immunity domain could not expand to envelop it, it would not be able to affect its operation. Admit defeat, could it be? Is it really that difficult for you to admit defeat? Qi Yu smiled faintly. It's not difficult to admit defeat, but I haven't lost yet. Haven't I? Qi Yu's body had completely disappeared within the dark red 1,000 possibilities ever-changing Xuanji realm technique. However, this could not stop the increasing energy of the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces. The rotation of the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces. It was equivalent to the energy of the stars represented by the 12 Zodiac constellations. It was not something that one person could resist alone. However, Qi Yu was not the least bit discouraged. He was not a loser until the very last moment. In the world of darkness, Yamu could not see Qi Yu's figure or sense his aura. The rotation speed of the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces had begun to gradually increase. The enormous pressure caused the 1,000 possibilities ever-changing Xuanji realm technique to begin to distort. Naturally, Qi Yu, who was within it, could not bear it. Qi Yu, don't hold on any longer. I don't want you to be hurt. Yamu's voice had regained its calmness and even contained a tinge of victory. Qi Yu did not reply. Just as Yamu's voice fell, the 1,000 possibilities ever-changing Xuanji realm technique suddenly changed. Under the enormous pressure of the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces, the 1,000 possibilities ever-changing Xuanji realm technique suddenly changed. The dark red light, which was originally 2 meters in diameter, suddenly disappeared. In an instant, it disappeared from the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces. Concealment and concealment. Is this the power of your realm? But it's useless. Once you've been locked onto by the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces, unless your energy surpasses that of the 12 Zodiac constellations, you won't be able to break free. Although Yamu's voice carried a tinge of surprise, she clearly did not think that Qi Yu had any chance. That's right. Given my strength, it's indeed impossible for me to contend against the 12 Zodiac constellations. I don't think you can do it either. However, there's one thing I'm very clear about. The 12 Zodiac constellations don't truly belong to you. You're only using the characteristics of your energy and the divine weapon you possess to establish a connection with their aura. Thus, you're able to make use of their energy. If you want to maintain this connection, you'll need to expend an extremely large amount of energy. However, the main reason why you say that this is the most powerful attack of the Zodiac realm is that as long as the 12 Zodiac palaces pattern continues to rotate, the energy it can draw from the 12 Zodiac constellations will become stronger and stronger. The amount of energy you need to expend will also become smaller and smaller. Hence, although the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces is very powerful, it's not without flaws. The more powerful the attack, the more energy it would consume. You and I both understand this principle. Even if your energy consumption is reduced under the effect of the realm, it's only relative. If you can't use this realm to destroy me within a certain period of time, then when your energy is depleted, it's hard to say who'll be the final victor. If you can activate the 12 Zodiac constellations to attack, I can also minimize the threat of the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces. In fact, I can even stop it for a short period of time. And this period of time should be when the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces has just started, because it's only then that your energy consumption is at its highest. This is also the only way to break through this realm attack. As long as you don't let it circulate smoothly, then its attack power won't be as terrifying as you say, right? Chi Yu's voice sounded a little cold, without a trace of emotion. His calm analysis seemed to have completely described the characteristics of the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces. This was the problem he discovered after thinking about it. In order to break free from this powerful attack, one actually didn't need to surpass the strength of the 12 Zodiac constellations. It was very easy for people trapped here to make mistakes, and constantly rely on their own energy to barely hold on, rather than desperately resisting in hopes of delaying for a longer time. But the more they forced themselves to hold on, the more the 12 Zodiac constellations revolved according to its rhythm, the less Yamu's energy consumption would be. After a period of decline and decline, when even the final resistance couldn't be achieved, then, the only outcome would be death. Of course, this referred to the strong enough to contend against Yamu. If a weakling entered the aria of the 12 Zodiac palaces, most likely, the moment the Zodiac constellations revolved, they would be crushed to ashes. Xianyuan Sword's Heaven, Man 1, the cold voice suddenly became berserk. Chi Yu's roar filled the entire night sky, the golden light spread out from a point, and in an instant, the direction it was moving in was the opposite direction of the Zodiac constellations. The entire Zodiac constellations completely lit up at this moment. The 12 Zodiac constellations each shot out a golden light to contend against the golden light that suddenly appeared. But when Xianyuan Sword's main body appeared once again, Chi Yu's figure had already disappeared, and in the entire space, only Xianyuan Sword existed. The golden light flickered, and the light from the 12 Zodiac constellations were completely attracted by it, the surging energy. It caused Xianyuan Sword's light to flourish. Within the Zodiac constellations, the sun, moon, and stars appeared one after another, and countless rays of light spread out with Xianyuan Sword as the center. When the golden sun appeared, the entire Zodiac constellations had already stopped revolving, and when the moon appeared, the light of the 12 Zodiac constellations had actually dimmed a lot. And the moment the starlight appeared, the signs of the Zodiac constellations actually began to tremble, and then, there were actually signs of it revolving in the opposite direction. Even if it wasn't because of its sharpness, the Xianyuan Sword was fully deserving of its title as the most powerful divine weapon. The huge golden sword floated in the center of the Zodiac constellations, and the armor on Chi Yu's body had completely disappeared, but the Xianyuan Sword was still in his hand. A low groan sounded, and everything around him instantly became distorted. The signs of the Zodiac constellations disappeared, the dark night sky disappeared, Chi Yu disappeared, and Yamu also disappeared. As he slowly opened his eyes, Chi Yu's body swayed slightly, and he only managed to stabilize himself after taking 2 steps back. The night sky and the starlight had all disappeared, and everything in front of him had returned to everything in Parthenon. Yama was at the end of the hall, below the statue of the goddess Athena. Her face looked a little pale, and the scepter of the goddess of victory had appeared in her hand. The unadorned scepter exuded a holy aura. Although it also had a faint layer of golden light, the light was much dimmer than it had been during the battle in the night sky. The two of them stared at each other for a full 5 minutes, and neither of them spoke. However, their mind power intertwined and probed each other. Through the deep look in each other's eyes, they could already see many things. It was not that they did not want to talk, but that they had consumed too much energy in the previous battle. It seemed like a battle in the spiritual world, but the energy consumed was real. Chi Yu did not know how Yama was doing, but he knew that his body seemed to have been completely drained after he used the half technique of heaven and human unity. It was just like when he used the ultimate Kirin's arm. However, he did not lose the ability to absorb energy this time. Activating the Xianyuan sword required too much energy. Back then, Xuanyuan's soul had told Qiyu that even if he used the ultimate Kirin's arm, he would only be able to use the half-technique of heaven and human unity at most. During this period, Qiyu had never stopped cultivating, so he naturally made a lot of progress. Previously, when he was trapped in the area of the 12 palaces in the domain of the signs of the Zodiac, he had released the Infinite Changes Jade Pearl Realm technique not to break the opponent's domain, because any domain would be suppressed in the area of the 12 palaces. However, after such a long time, the Infinite Changes Jade Pearl Realm technique had been explored by Qiyu far more than the previous few abilities. In the case of being trapped, he fully activated the amplification effect of the method of the Jade Pearl Realm of 1,000 opportunities and 100 changes. By relying on the instantaneous absorption of the surrounding free energy and the almost destructive compression of his own energy, his own cloud power reached a highly saturated state. Then, through the Qilin arm full of explosive power, with his own power of origin as the guide, he barely activated the super energy of the Xianyuan sword. Xuanyuan's soul had also helped. When Qiyu injected his own energy into the Xianyuan sword, he had filtered the energy transmitted by Qiyu and the Xianyuan sword through the 10,000-year cold jade, making the energy purer and more condensed. The energy that was like a solid substance was able to display half of the power of heaven and human unity at the last moment. This time, when he used the heaven and human unity, Qiyu also understood one thing. After he merged with One Ting, the energy obtained was not as simple as 1 plus 1, but the effect of the fusion was definitely a qualitative change. Previously, when he used the complete heaven and human unity, he still had some energy left, but this time, he was only able to display half of its power. It seemed that the solar lunar star's crimson-golden armor was far more useful than he had imagined. Taking a deep breath, countless energy molecules surged into his body through his pores, causing Qiyu's entire body to feel soft. With the help of the Kirin's ascending cloud technique and the origin of nature, Qiyu's recovery ability was extremely shocking. In just 5 minutes, the thundercloud force in his body had gradually recovered from 0 to 10%. This kind of recovery speed was the fastest at the beginning, and as the thundercloud force continued to accumulate and purify, the speed would gradually decrease. Miss Yamu's strength is really amazing. The signs of the Zodiac domain. In the end, it was Qiyu who spoke first. He stretched his body and swept a glance at Yamu with a sharp gaze. He was very clear that in his current situation, if Yamu really wanted to destroy him, she only needed to call the Constellation Guardians outside. Even if he used the ultimate Kirin arm, how many Constellation Guardians could he kill? Yamu's gaze deepened as she looked at Qiyu. Her body, which was originally supported by the Victory Goddess scepter, slowly stood up. Her pale face was still without a trace of blood. The facts have proven that my judgment is correct. Choosing to cooperate with you is far wiser than becoming your enemy. Qiyu smiled and said, "If Miss Yamu thinks so, then I will be very honored. Let's call this battle a draw. In fact, it is indeed a draw. It's a pity for Miss Yamu." The pity he was referring to was naturally the fact that Yamu had the upper hand, but in the end, he had broken through the signs of the Zodiac domain. Yamu said lightly, "There is nothing to pity. In a battle, what is needed is both strength and wisdom. Qiyu, after I obtained the signs of the Zodiac domain, you are the first person to break it." Chapter 183. Yamu looked at Qiyu in surprise. "I didn't expect you to be so observant. What if I told you that I still can't use Goddess Athena's armor? Would you still think that I'm hiding my strength?" Qiyu was stunned. "Didn't you already inherit Goddess Athena's divinity? And you've already used the other 2 divine weapons, why can't you use her armor?" Yamu smiled indifferently. "Even if I inherit Goddess Athena's divinity, I can't directly use Athena's full strength. The growth of one's strength could only be achieved through continuous cultivation and the integration of one's godly body. Just like the Zodiac guardians, if they want to become stronger, they need to better integrate with the constellation they belong to. Chiyu smiled. Hearing you say that makes me feel more balanced. I originally thought that you were a goddess from birth. Yamu's charming face revealed a trace of a smile, and unexpectedly said with a hint of bitterness, I'm the one who feels unbalanced. You haven't been a Zodiac guardian warrior for long, but you already have such powerful strength. I've been cultivating since I was born, and it's been a full 19 years. Say, who do you think has contributed more? Looking at Yamu's bitter expression, Chiyu couldn't help but feel a sense of closeness. This is a real girl. A 19-year-old girl should have such emotions. I'm the genius Kirin. Chiyu chuckled as he looked at Yumao with a lustful look in his eyes. Today's battle will be over. Does it count as mutual appreciation? Mutual appreciation? You're the gorilla. Yamu said snappily. Mutual appreciation is an idiom of our Yanhuang Republic. It seems that your Yanhuang language isn't completely up to par. Orangutan? How could you even think of that? Is there an orangutan like you? Chiyu couldn't help but burst into laughter. He even lowered his arms and gestured to Yamu like a gorilla. Listening to his explanation, Yamu couldn't help blushing and said angrily, Don't laugh. Chiyu could not help but stare blankly at her sulky appearance. Her already beautiful face was now even more enchanting. Her eyes were sparkling, and although her sacred aura had faded a lot, it had become a bit more charming. You're so beautiful, Chiyu praised sincerely. Yamu looked at Chiyu with a strange gaze. Although she knew that her looks were definitely the most outstanding among women, she had grown up since young. Be it the rulers of Greece or the constellation guardians who had always been protecting her, they only had respect and love for her, but no one had ever praised her beauty to her face. Yes, she was the successor of Goddess Athena. But at the same time, she was also a girl. As long as it was a girl, who wouldn't want to be praised by others? Yamu slowly walked to Chiyu's side. The scepter of the goddess of victory in her hand disappeared with a golden light. When she stood in front of Chiyu, the paleness on her face had already disappeared. Chiyu, can you tell me why your energy recovered so quickly? Don't deny it. You should know that I can feel the change in your aura. Chiyu looked at her deeply and said, Since you don't want me to deny it, then I can only say that I can't tell you. Yamu sighed softly and said, If that's the case, then forget it. Now, are you willing to cooperate with me? Cooperating with you? Isn't it the cooperation between the Zodiac Guardian and the Constellation Guardians? Chiyu looked at her in surprise. Yamu shook her head and said, I don't know how to explain it to you. I can only tell you that the Constellation Guardians, who are very respectful to me on the surface, are not as united as a piece of iron. Do you understand what I mean? Chiyu was shocked. The way he looked at Yamu suddenly changed. He didn't think that Yamu would even tell him such a secret. Was this a sign of trust? However, she represented the Guardians of the West. It was just like how he represented the Guardian of the East. No matter how one looked at it, even if they were not enemies, the possibility of them becoming true friends was extremely small. Chiyu's eyes flickered for a moment as he solemnly said, Then how do you want me to cooperate with you? Aren't you afraid that I will go back on my words during the cooperation? Looking at Chiyu, Yamu's eyes revealed a hint of coquettishness, and she said provocatively, Will you? Chiyu touched his nose and shook his head, saying, I don't know, maybe. Yamu smiled indifferently and said, Even if you will, I still want to take a gamble. In my life, in the past 19 years, it can be said that everything was under my control. Or, it could be said that it was under the control of the goddess Athena. But now, I want to change this situation. Today's battle with you made me understand many things. Although your achievements today are inseparable from your talent, it is also inseparable from your experiences. If I'm not wrong, that time when you sacrificed your arm to launch a powerful attack, although it caused great damage to your body. But at the same time, it also became the motivation for your rapid improvement. A person's potential often needs to be stimulated in order to better unleash it. Without pressure, you can only improve steadily. My desire for strength is no less than yours, so now I want to taste the taste of danger. This is the reason why I want to cooperate with you. Ah! Looking at Yamu's serious expression, Chi-Yu knew that she was not joking with him. But, is this true? Even if Yamu's status in Greece was not the highest, it was not far from it. Compared to his status in the Yenhuang Republic, it was much higher. She was the object of protection for all Greeks. She was the most powerful guardian in Greece. What did she mean when she said it was dangerous? Yamu saw the doubt in Chi-Yu's heart. She smiled and said, "Actually, it is not difficult to experience the taste of danger. Perhaps you find it unbelievable because of the strength I have, but what if all my abilities disappear at the same time? Do you think I will go through the process of danger? At the very least, you are a huge danger by my side." Chi-Yu thought quickly and said in a deep voice, "I don't understand what you mean." Yamu said, "Let's go back to the previous topic. You said it just now. I did not use my full strength in the battle with you, and your judgment came from my weapon. My answer to you is that I can't fully master Athena's artifact now, is that so? And if I want to master Athena's artifact, I can't just rely on cultivation. Only when my abilities and aura are recognized by the goddess Athena's divine artifact can I truly use them. The 3 artifacts of goddess Athena. Among the armor of the goddess of victory, the scepter of the goddess of victory, and the shield of the goddess of victory, I can only fully master the shield of the goddess of victory. If I want to further master the other 2 artifacts, I have two ways. The first is to continue cultivating diligently. When my strength changes from quantitative to qualitative, I can break through and get the recognition of Goddess Athena. The other method is much more dangerous. It is to completely give up the ability I have now for a period of time and spread my own energy into Goddess Athena's artifact, so that the aura of the artifact can fuse with the energy I emit. In this way, I can forcibly get the recognition of Goddess Athena's artifact in a very short period of time. The second method is dangerous, but if I succeed, the benefits to me are immeasurable. Chi-Yu was shocked. He vaguely understood what Yamu wanted to do. He hesitated for a moment and said, "But if you forcibly fuse with the artifact like this, will there be any disadvantages to your future development? According to the cultivation method of us Guardians of the East, only a step-by-step cultivation method is the best." Yamu shook her head and said, "In terms of cultivation, that is true, but I am different from you. What you have is the power of the bloodline left behind by the ancestors. What I have is the divinity of Goddess Athena. Whether it is the Kiran bloodline that you inherited or my divinity, in a certain sense, it is a phenomenon that cannot be explained with words. Unlike you, if I want to truly improve my strength, I must better fuse with the divinity. Unlike you, who has completely fused with the bloodline of Kiran, and then quickly improved your strength through cultivation. After more than 10 years of cultivation, the degree of fusion between me and the divinity has reached about 60%, but the last 40% is the most difficult. Only after completely fusing with the divinity can I truly grasp all of Goddess Athena's abilities, and only then can I further improve after mastering all of Goddess Athena's abilities. If I want to better fuse with the divinity, I need to obtain the approval of Goddess Athena's artifact. This is because the 3 artifacts that Goddess Athena left in this world all contain her divine power. Absorbing this divine power will definitely strengthen the fusion between me and Goddess Athena's divinity. This is the best way to promote the fusion. I have only one goal in my daily cultivation, and that is to promote the fusion of myself with the artifact as soon as possible. Do you understand what I mean?" Chi-Yu smiled and said, Although I don't fully understand, I have a general idea of what you mean. What you mean is that, as the strongest of the guardians of the West, your cultivation method is very special. Going step by step is not necessarily good. Only by using all means possible to obtain the approval of Athena's artifact can your strength make a huge leap. And what you want me to do is to protect you during this period of time when you lose your ability. This should be the cooperation you are talking about, right? Yama looked at Chiyu, and the gaze in her eyes became gentle. It's really a very lucky thing to talk to a smart person. You are right, this is the cooperation I am talking about. Chiyu said, don't you feel that you are asking a tiger for its skin by cooperating with me? When you lose your ability, aren't you afraid that I will take advantage of your perilous situation and strangle you in the cradle? You must know that your current strength is already a huge threat to me. If I let you make a further leap, then I will not have the strength to contain you. At that time, wouldn't the Guardians of the East be suppressed by the Guardians of the West? Even if some of your Guardians are not on the same side as you, there are still a few who are loyal to you. Isn't it a better choice to use them to protect you? What's more, when you lose your ability, how will others know? As long as you don't say anything, quietly train and quickly obtain the approval of the artifact, isn't that also a very good method? Yama sighed and said, let me answer your last question first. The guardians of the constellation are the guardians of Goddess Athena. In a sense, their energy can be said to be bestowed by me. However, their energy is not of the same system as mine. My power comes from God, and their power comes from their respective constellations. Because of the connection between us, if I lose my ability, they will be the first to know. You must know that in this world, there is no one who does not have ambition. There is a secret I can tell you. If I am killed, the divinity of Athena will not disappear. As long as the one who kills me uses my blood to baptize his body, then he will be able to become the new successor of the divinity. Of course, there is a condition for this succession. That is, it must be a blood relative of mine, or a guardian who has energy relations with me. You should know what it means to become Goddess Athena. As long as you can sit in my position, not only in Greece, but in the entire West, the power you will have will be unimaginable. Under such temptation, even if it is the guardians who are loyal to me, won't their hearts change? Won't they become greedy? Maybe I should not suspect them, but I have to be cautious. Because if that happens, I will definitely fall into a situation of no return. So, I dare not take the risk, and can only train step by step. Until today, I have not tried the second method of training. Chiyu frowned and said, then am I worthy of your trust? Aren't you afraid that I will destroy you? Or to put it simply, I will not care about you, and let you guardians of the West kill each other. This will not do me any harm. Yama smiled and said, it is because I know you that I made this decision. The competition just now has proved that you have the ability to protect me. You are an Easterner and the strongest among the Guardians of the East. Based on my understanding of the Guardians of the East, or rather, the people of Yen and Huang, you will not take advantage of others. Otherwise, you will not be able to become Kirin's successor. No matter how weak you appear on the surface, in your bones, you have inherited the purest bloodline of the Yen and Huang people. Am I right? Looking at Yama's calm look, Chiyu could not help but feel a little discouraged. Even so, I can choose not to help you. Why should I let an expert who might be my enemy become stronger than me? Yama smiled and said, what if I promise you a reward? Chiyu smiled and said, what do you think I need now? You have also said that our cultivation methods are different. Could it be that you will give me a divine weapon if you obtain it? Yama shook her head and said, that is definitely impossible. But as long as one is human, there is hope for something. As long as I can satisfy you, I can promise you whatever you want. Chiyu said almost without thinking, then what if I want you? I want you as a person. Are you willing to give yourself to me? Silence. Absolute silence. Yamu looked at Chiyu in a daze, and Chiyu was also shocked by his own words. Only now did he realize that he had long coveted the goddess Athena in front of him. Perhaps ordinary people would only feel reverence when they saw Yamu. But Chiyu was different. As the heir of Kirin's bloodline, or the heir of Casanova's bloodline. Or it could be said that he was the inheritor of the romantic bloodline. He would not be affected by the divine aura of Rain Eyes at all. Even under certain circumstances, the holy aura on Yamu's body had a strong stimulating effect on the Casanova seed in his body. Unintentionally, he actually blurted out his inner thought. This. Yamu, you know I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to blaspheme you. It's just that you are so beautiful as a man, it is inevitable that some thoughts will arise in his heart. Please don't mind it. Chiyu explained awkwardly. However, even he felt that such an explanation was very far-fetched. The sluggishness on Yamu's pretty face gradually disappeared, and a faint smile dyed her delicate face even more beautiful and charming. Her long purple wavy hair swayed gently, and her incomparably clear eyes stared closely at Chiyu's face. Is this your condition? Her voice was still so pleasant to listen to. Other than a slight smile, Chiyu could not see that she was angry at all. Could this be the legendary calm before the storm? Chiyu thought to himself. His brain worked quickly. Frankly speaking, any man's heart would soften after being begged by a perfect beauty, and Chiyu was no exception. However, his rationality told him that he could not agree to Yamu's proposal to cooperate. Although he did not use his full strength in the competition with Yamu because of Parthenon's uniqueness and his intention to restrain his ability, Yamu's increase in strength would still pose an invisible threat. Among the humans in this world, she was probably the only one who could be his true opponent. Helping her increase her strength would undoubtedly be against him. Thinking of this, Chiyu nodded and said, "Yes, this is my condition. If you want me to help you, sure, but I want you to devote yourself to me and become my wife." As he said this, he could not help but reveal a somewhat proud smile. He thought to himself, now you still don't know how to retreat? How could a dignified virgin goddess, the dignified successor of goddess Athena, agree to such a condition? At this moment, even Chiyu himself felt that he was very wretched. However, this thought only flashed through his mind for a moment before it was ignored. Deep in his heart, he more or less had some expectations and some strange feelings. Looking deeply at Chiyu, Yamu's gaze froze for a full 2 minutes. A faint blush quietly appeared on her beautiful delicate face. She took a deep breath and as if she had gathered her courage, she said, "Being Kirin's wife is not an insult to my identity, so I promise you." "Oh, promise me? That's great," Chiyu subconsciously replied, but he immediately reacted. Without any manners, he opened his mouth wide and stared at Yamu so hard that his eyeballs almost fell out. What did you say?" Chiyu's voice had changed completely. It was so sharp that even he could not recognize it. However, he clearly realized that his heart was trembling, and even his body was trembling slightly. He did not know whether it was because of excitement or because of an inexplicable nervousness. Yamu smiled slightly, and her shyness gradually disappeared. She nodded firmly and said, I promise you to be your wife." This time, she said it very clearly, word by word, into Chiyu's ears. Chiyu looked at Yamu in shock, and for a long time, he could not say a word. Originally, he was the one who gave Yamu a difficult problem, but now it became his problem. After a long time, he stammered, But you're a Westerner and I'm an Easterner." Yamu smiled and said, "Nationality is not a problem, so what? Science has already proven that the further apart the bloodline of two people, the better it is for the future generations." Future generations? But you're the successor of goddess Athena. If you marry me, then what about your constellation guardians?" Yamu said without hesitation, dismissed. Chiyu was already speechless, but he still could not believe that everything in front of him was the truth. Then, aren't you a virgin goddess? You asked me to cooperate with you. Isn't it to improve your own strength? But after you marry me, you'll lose your virginity, and your strength will automatically disappear. What's the point for you? Yamu stared fiercely at Chiyu and said unhappily, You can even say such words. You're really a hooligan. Listening to her words, Chiyu relaxed a little, smiled slightly, and said, Why can't I say it? Since you're going to be my wife, then it's inevitable that there will be a relationship between a man and a woman. This is the most normal relationship between a man and a woman, isn't it? Yamu stared at him, and just as she was about to say something, she stopped and sighed softly. Chiyu said, Moreover, I already have a fiancé. And to be frank with you, I have more than one fiancé. There's a total of 3. Don't tell me you want to be my concubine? Yamu's elegant brows slightly wrinkled. For someone as outstanding as you, it's not a problem even if you have more wives. I don't mind. Moreover, I have confidence that I can defeat them and become your most beloved wife. She even thought of fighting for a man's affections. It can't be. Does she really want to be my wife? Chiyu felt that his brain had short-circuited. Looking at Yamu, he was more and more unable to understand what this perfect woman in front of him was thinking. However, he was after all very smart. Just at this moment, his mind flashed, and he said, I understand, Yamu. Do you mean that you want to be my wife in name, and not have the most normal relationship between a man and a woman? It's only in name. Isn't that a big loss for me? Yamu was stunned for a moment, and the gentle gaze in her eyes suddenly became a little fierce, but quickly returned to its gentle state. Yes, I really think so. As the successor of Goddess Athena, I am a virgin goddess. In order to ensure my own bloodline, I have to do this. I can't lose my own power. And becoming your wife in name is a guarantee for you. Only in this way I think you can truly believe me. After all, as your wife, how can I hurt you? Isn't such a guarantee enough? Looking deeply at Yamu, Chiyu knew that this was already the biggest concession she could make. After all, she was the successor of Goddess Athena. She was a supreme existence in the West. She was willing to become his wife in name, which was equivalent to lowering her position in the hearts of all the Westerners, and she was willing to sacrifice her own reputation. Wasn't this enough? Looking at Yamu, Chiyu really admired her in his heart. Looking at her deep purple eyes, Chiyu knew that although she wanted to improve her own power, at the same time, she wanted to gain his complete trust. Looking at Chiyu's hesitation, Yamu somewhat misunderstood him, and a faint trace of sadness appeared in her eyes. I'm sorry, Chiyu, this is all I can do. At least at this stage, this is all I can do. I will become your wife in name. When the day comes that the West no longer needs my protection, I will definitely become your wife, okay? Don't force me. Looking at her sad expression, even a heart of stone would melt, not to mention that Chiyu already had a very good impression of her. His brain instantly heated up, and he did not think much about it. If he could make Goddess Athena his wife in name, and become his wife, then wouldn't it be equivalent to putting the Eastern Guardian above the Western Guardian? She was willing to make such a sacrifice. What was there for a man like him to be afraid of? If she could improve her power, why couldn't he? Even if he really had to face her challenge in the future, there was nothing for him to be afraid of. Thinking of this, Chiyu no longer hesitated and nodded firmly. Okay, I agree to cooperate with you. Yamu stood there and looked at Chiyu quietly. She did not show any expression of surprise because of his agreement. Instead, she looked at him with a gentle gaze, as if she was thinking about something. However, her heart was so deep that Chiyu could not see through it. Yamu slowly took a step forward and took the initiative to hold Chiyu's big hand. She brought the warm hand to her face and gently rubbed it. The smooth feeling was clearly transmitted from the palm of his hand, causing Chiyu's heart to tremble slightly. That sparkling skin not only had amazing elasticity, but also a special kind of moisturizing feeling. Gently rubbing it, the warm feeling was really too wonderful. It was a feeling that could not be described with words. A clear sense of accomplishment entered his mind. Just like how Yamu, who had integrated the goddess of Athena, was a woman, the inheritor of Kiran's bloodline, Chi-Yu was after all a man. How could a normal man not feel satisfied when he received the approval of such a perfect woman? Although a large part of the reason was because of his identity and strength, it was enough to satisfy his vanity. Chi-Yu did not move, nor did he show his rogue side, because he did not want to destroy the current feeling. That wonderful and peaceful feeling made him feel intoxicated from the bottom of his heart. "I'm sorry, Chi-Yu. I know this is unfair to you. However, this is the only way I could think of to make you trust me. Can you understand my heart?" Yamu said softly. Chi-Yu made a sound of acknowledgement, his attention still focused on his hands. Yamu sighed. "This is only the second time we've met. Perhaps you think that I'm a casual woman." No, it's not like that. Why would you think that? If there is only one person in this world who is worthy of you, then I believe that I am that person. In that case, isn't it logical for you to become my wife? Since you trust me so much and paid such a big price to gain my trust, you can rest assured. I will definitely protect your safety for a period of time from now on. Yamu nodded lightly, let go of Chi-Yu's hand and took a step back, looking at him with a smile. "Chi-Yu, do you know? You are the first man to touch my body. If not, perhaps I would not have made up my mind to use this method to make you trust me." "The first man to touch your body?" Chi-Yu looked at Yamu in surprise. "Are you referring to our hug outside the temple? I didn't do it on purpose." Chapter 184. Chi-Yu smiled awkwardly and said, Yes, there's no need to explain. However, I'm curious. Could it be that your father never touched your body? Why would you say that I'm the first man to touch you?" Yamu's eyes revealed a strong sadness. "Yes, my father has never touched my body, even my mother passed away after giving birth to me. 19 years ago, the moment I was born, a huge amount of divine power engulfed their bodies. It was also from then on that I became the focus of the Greek." "So you're an orphan too?" As an orphan himself, looking at Yamu, Chi-Yu immediately showed sympathy. Yamu shook her head sadly. "No, I'm different from you. At least, you're only an orphan. However, I know very clearly that my parents died because of my birth. Although I inherited the divinity of Goddess Athena, they also died because of this. I caused their deaths, it's me." Seeing the sadness in Yamu's eyes, Chi-Yu could not help but feel pain in his heart. He walked forward and gently pulled her into his arms, cried out, "You'll feel better that way. This is not what you wanted. You were just born, how could you have a choice? If I had a choice, I'd rather be an ordinary person." At this point, Yamu could no longer hold back the sadness in her heart and burst into tears. She hugged Chi-Yu's waist with both hands, as if she was drowning and holding onto a piece of driftwood. At this moment she looked so helpless, so sad. Yamu's crying did not last for too long. When her crying gradually stopped, she still did not leave Chi-Yu's arms. At this moment Chi-Yu, who was hugging a beautiful woman, did not have any dirty thoughts in his heart. Only a deep sense of pity. "Now, you should believe that you're the first man to touch my body. You are not only the first, but also the last. Ever since I was born, no man has been able to touch my body. Before I turned 18, Goddess Athena's divine power had always protected me. As long as a man tried to touch me, he would be injured by the divine power. Throughout the year, my understanding of divinity was fully awakened. Only when he had the power to protect himself did the divine power gradually disappear. If it wasn't for your divine power from the Xianyuan sword that broke through my defense when I was careless, you wouldn't have been able to touch my body." "I do, of course I do. Do you feel better after crying it out?" Chi-Yu comforted her softly, his warm palm slowly stroking her back. "Chi-Yu, it feels so wonderful to be loved. Thank you, Yama murmured. Chiyu smiled. Am I not your husband? As long as you want. I can protect you forever. Slowly raising his head, Chiyu used his hand to gently wipe away the tears on her face. Don't cry, it's all in the past. Your parents' sacrifice is definitely worth it to the people of Greece. I think their souls in heaven will definitely not hate their own daughter, right? Since you've already become the goddess Athena, you can only do better. This is the best way to repay them. Lightly nodding, Yama's emotions had clearly calmed down. We should go out. We can't let them wait too long. Chiyu chuckled. That's right. Otherwise, your constellation guardians might think that I've done something to you. Yama glared at him and said, Haven't you done anything to me yet? Still not letting go? Hugging you feels so comfortable, why should I let go? Not to mention, don't you feel that it's wonderful too? Chiyu looked at Yamu naughtily. Yamu struggled lightly and escaped from his embrace. Chiyu, I hope that you'll be the only one to see my true side, okay? Her expression was calm, but her tone had a hint of pleading. Chiyu smiled and said, I understand. In front of others, you're still the goddess Athena, but only when we're alone, you're my wife. Thank you. Yamu seemed to be relieved, and looked at Chiyu with a look of gratitude. Is there a need for thanks between husband and wife? But, when do you intend to give me a status? Chiyu's current look was like a grieving wife, and it immediately made Yama laugh through her tears. Annoying, it sounds so bad. What do you mean by giving you a status? Let's go, we'll talk after we get out. As expected of the successor of the goddess Athena, in just a short while, not only did Yamu's strength recover a little, even the traces of her crying just now had disappeared. When Chiyu and Yama walked out of Parthenon side by side, the 4 constellation guardians were waiting outside. Seeing the two of them coming out, Ilyas quickly came forward, and after looking at Chiyu with vigilance, he said to Yama, Miss. Yama waved her hand and said, Let's go, Mr. Chi must be tired from the long journey, let's go to the hotel. Ilyas looked at Chiyu with a puzzled look, and then glared at Chiyu fiercely, and then called for a car. Getting back in the car, Chiyu still got into Yamu's Rolls-Royce. Once in the car, he quietly held Yamu's small hand between the seat. Yamu only struggled a little, but Chiyu held it very tightly. She looked at him helplessly and shyly, and then let him hold it. Exhilarating. This word was the most suitable to describe Chiyu's current mood. It was absolutely exhilarating. What kind of feeling would it be to have the goddess Athena as my wife? Chiyu's heart was filled with a comfortable feeling, and he gently rubbed Yamu's soft little hand, and from time to time looked at her beautiful face. His heart was indescribably satisfied. When do you plan to start? Chiyu asked through telepathy. Yamu thought for a moment and said, There's no time to lose with you here, let's start tonight. I think by then you should have recovered most of your strength. Moreover, even if someone wants to harm me, they will need time to prepare. Chiyu smiled and said, Then let's put it this way. From tonight onwards, I'm going to guard you without leaving your side? My goddess. Yamu's pretty face blushed. Can you not say it so ambiguously, it sounds so weird. Chiyu felt wronged and said, I am speaking the truth. Since I want to protect you, naturally I will not leave you an inch. Otherwise, if something happens to you, what will I do? Looking at him, Yamu couldn't help but burst into laughter, and said, I really don't know what to do with you. I now believe your evaluation of yourself more and more. You are a ruffian, a hooligan. Chiyu chuckled and said, I said it myself. Who told you not to believe me? Yamu, how long do you need to fuse with the divine weapons? I'm afraid I can't stay in Athens for too long. Yamu thought for a moment and said, If everything goes smoothly, about a month or so. Maybe a little shorter. After all, I have fused with the divine land to 60%, and the scepter of the goddess of victory has basically approved of me. But there is still one last step. This time, I took the risk of fusing my divine power with the divine weapons to break through this last step, and then obtain the armor of the goddess of victory's trust. This way, I will be able to have all three of Athena's divine weapons at the same time, and my strength will increase by a lot. That will be enough. If I continue to cultivate from now on, it won't take too long for me to reach the peak of Goddess Athena's strength. Chiyu said doubtfully, "At that time, you will be the real goddess?" Yama shook her head and said, "How is that possible? Even if it is like that, I am just a clone of Goddess Athena in the human world. Actually, even I don't know how strong Goddess Athena is. Maybe, after I completely fuse with my divine power, I will have some enlightenment." Chiyu nodded and said, "If it is only a month, then I should be fine. Just now at Parthenon, you said that your constellation guardians are not a solid block, who will betray you, and who will pose a threat to you. Shouldn't you tell me now? At least I can be prepared." Yama thought for a moment and said, "I'm sorry. I can't tell you now because I don't have any confidence." Chiyu was startled and said, "If that is the case, then why do you doubt me? There must be a reason." Yama sighed softly and said, "Of course there is a reason. But, the Constellation Guardians are a very independent group. Their mission is to protect me, but I can't really control them. Just like you can't really control the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Maybe we will know soon. This time, the reason why I decided to take the risk, 1, is to strengthen my determination to cooperate with you Zodiac Guardian Warriors, the other, is to expose the problem of the Constellation Guardians." Chiyu nodded and said, "I understand. All right, let us wait and see who among you Constellation Guardians is so daring. But no matter who it is, I will not allow them to hurt my goddess." Yama smiled and said, "In your heart, do you really treat me as a goddess?" Chiyu returned the same smile and said, "What do you think?" The car moved quickly, and Yama's motorcade obviously had special privileges in Greece, and the road was unimpeded. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the largest and most luxurious hotel in Greece, the Athens Hotel. The waiter opened the doors for the 3 cars, and the 4 Constellation Guardians surrounded them. Under their escort, Chiyu and Yama walked into the hotel. Yama smiled and said, "Mr. Chi, today, I will invite you to try our Greek delicacies. Although compared to the 5,000 years of culinary culture of the Yenhuang Republic, it is still considered unique." Chiyu laughed and said, "Sure. I have always been interested in food. Today is a good time to try." The 6 of them directly came to the 2nd floor of the Athens Hotel. This hotel had 131 floors, and it was also one of the tallest buildings in Athens. Under the waiter's guidance, they came to a luxurious hall at the innermost side of the restaurant. The moment they entered the hall, Chiyu was shocked. That was because there were a total of 10 large round tables in the hall, and many people were already seated. Only the main table was empty. Without waiting for Chiyu to ask, Yama said, "This is a welcoming banquet specially organized for you and Miss Ming Ming. The guests are all dignitaries from all walks of life in Athens." Chiyu furrowed his brows and said, "I would rather go to Athens to eat street food with you. I have always disliked this kind of occasion." Yama said helplessly, "I have no choice. It's fine if you're the only one here, but don't forget that you're not the main character in this trip to Greece, but Miss Ming Ming. In a sense, she represents the Yenhuang Republic." Hearing Yama's words, Chiyu could not help but feel a chill in his heart. That's right. The real main character this time should be Ming Ming. Just now when Yama said that she wanted to be his wife, would she tell this to Ming Ming? If the answer was yes, then wouldn't she deliberately create a conflict between him and Ming Ming, and create an opportunity for Lin Yifan? Thinking of this, the way Chiyu looked at Yama suddenly changed, but he did not say anything. Under the escort of the 4 Constellation Guardians, they came to the innermost luxurious round table in the banquet hall and sat down with Yama. Chiyu transmitted his voice to Yama and asked, "I have never asked you. Although you are the successor of Goddess Athena, this secret should only be known by a small number of people. But such a secret should only be known by a small number of people. So, what is your public identity? Yamu smiled mysteriously and transmitted her voice. What do you think? Chi-Yu smiled bitterly. It can't be some important person in the country, right? Yamu shook her head and said, That's not it. My public identity in Athens is the chairman of the Athens Shipping Company. Ah? What did you say? Hearing her words, Chi-Yu could not help but be surprised. Even if he did not know much about business, he knew about the Athens Shipping Company. As the largest shipping company in Greece, the Athens Shipping Company had always been the leader of the industry in Greece. And Greece's most prosperous and the most famous in the world was also the shipping industry. There had been many ship kings, and they were in the leading position in the world's shipping industry. If there was anything in the world that Greece was best known for, other than Greek mythology, it would probably be shipping. And as the chairman of the largest shipping company in Greece, then the assets under Yamu could probably be ranked in the top few in the whole of Greece. You didn't expect me to be a businesswoman, did you? Yamu smiled slightly and said calmly. Chi-Yu smiled bitterly. Of course not. The dignified successor of the goddess Athena has actually been tainted with the stench of money. Yamu snorted lightly and said, Can't you say something nice? What do you mean by the stench of money? You are really a ruffian. This is the best cover for my identity. In fact, I am only the chairman in name. The Athens Shipping Company belongs to the Greek government. I am not involved in it. I rarely attend social events. A few of the highest officials in Greece know my true identity, so no one will doubt it. Chi-Yu nodded and said, This identity is grand enough. A 19-year-old chairman, only the Greek government can think of this. At this time, another group of people walked into the banquet hall from outside. If the arrival of Yamu and Chi-Yu did not attract much attention, then the moment this group of people entered the door, they became the focus of the entire banquet hall. Surrounded by at least 20 bodyguards, Lin Yifan looked so handsome in his white suit, and Ming Ming walked beside him. Today, she wore a blue dress, and although her appearance was slightly inferior to Yamu, she was still the best among the beauties. Especially the tranquil expression on Ming Ming's face, which exuded an invisible noble aura, it made all the Greeks present look at her with admiration. Lin Yifan made an inviting gesture, and led Ming Ming to the main table. He elegantly pulled out the chair for Ming Ming, giving her the most important seat in the banquet hall, and sat beside Ming Ming. Ming Ming did not notice her own position, and when she saw Chi-Yu, she had long forgotten about Lin Yifan. Looking at Chi-Yu, and then at Yamu beside Chi-Yu, her lips moved slightly, and she transmitted her voice. Chi-Yu, how are you? Chi-Yu smiled, and through the telepathic link with Ming Ming, he replied her. I am fine. I went to visit Parthenon. What about you? Did this guy do anything wrong? Without waiting for Ming Ming to answer, Lin Yifan, who sat down, smiled at Chi-Yu. Mr. Chi, I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. What's your impression of Greece? Chi-Yu smiled and said, My impression is very good. Greece is a very beautiful country. At the same time, it also has a long history of culture. I think our trip to Greece this time must have been very wonderful. Lin Yifan smiled indifferently. He clapped his hands and nodded to the attendant beside him. Suddenly, the light music in the hall stopped, and the Athenian socialites who were chatting with each other quietened down. Lin Yifan slowly stood up, and gracefully bowed to the people present. He gracefully bowed to everyone present and smilingly said, I'm very honored to be able to invite so many distinguished guests here today. What makes me especially excited is that my fiancée has come to Athens from the distant Yenhuang Republic. Let us welcome this beautiful lady with a warm round of applause. As he spoke, he took the lead to applaud. Lin Yifan was the son of the Greek president. He was extremely talented, and he entered the Greek political scene at the age of 20. He was definitely a star of tomorrow. Moreover, today's occasion was personally instructed by the Greek president. Immediately, warm applause resounded in the hall. Naturally, Chi-Yu and Ming-Ming could not understand the Greek language, but Chi-Yu had Yamu by his side, and Yamu translated. His face immediately darkened. This guy. He actually said in public that Ming-Ming was his fiancée. Obviously, he did not take me seriously. However, he did not lose his temper. After all, as Yamu said, Ming-Ming represented the Yanhuang Republic. For the sake of the relationship between the two countries, he could only bear with it for the time being. Ming-Ming listened to Lin Yifan speak Greek in a daze. The sudden applause startled her. When she saw Lin Yifan's gesture, she realized that the applause was for her. Lin Yifan smiled and said, "Miss Ming-Ming, won't you say a few words to us?" Ming-Ming looked at him and slowly stood up. Although she looked calm on the surface, through their telepathic connection, Chi-Yu could feel Ming-Ming's nervousness. "Greece is a beautiful country, and I'm very happy to be here as a guest. I didn't expect so many people to attend this banquet today. It's really a surprise. Coming to Greece, I bring the greetings of the Yanhuang Republic to Greece. I hope that the two countries can be a friendly federation forever. Thank you." After all, Ming-Ming was born in a military family, and her father was an influential general in the Yanhuang Republic. Although she was nervous, she still responded appropriately. Ming-Ming sat down again, and Lin Yifan announced the start of the banquet. All kinds of Greek delicacies were served on the table. Lin Yifan picked up a bottle of red wine that was obviously old, and made a gesture of inquiry to Ming-Ming. Ming-Ming shook her head and said, "Thank you, but it's okay. I'll just have juice. I don't drink." Ming-Ming sat in the main seat. On her right was Lin Yifan, and on her left was Yum. Beside Yum was Chi-Yu, which meant that there were two beauties between Chi-Yu and Lin Yifan. Looking at the wine in Lin Yifan's hand, Chi-Yu smiled and said, "Since Ming-Ming doesn't want to drink, let me drink on her behalf. I'm a famous drunkard." Lin Yifan frowned and said, "Mr. Chi, I'm really sorry. This bottle of red wine is from France, produced in 1572. It's unique in the world. I took it out today just to let Miss Ming-Ming have a taste." Hearing his words, Chi-Yu's expression changed slightly. "This kid was showing off to me. So what if you're rich? What's so great about red wine from a few hundred years ago?" Although he was unhappy in his heart, Chi-Yu did not show it on his face. He smiled and said, "Since it's like that, then forget it. A guest will follow the host's wishes. Since Mr. Lin can't bear to part with it, I'll be too embarrassed to drink anymore." Ming-Ming looked at Lin Yifan, and the light in her eyes became cold. Other than the four of them, there were 4 other constellation protectors at the main table. In front of so many people, Lin Yifan did not give Chi-Yu any face. It was obvious that she wanted to give her beloved man a show of strength. With a smile, Ming-Ming slowly stood up and smiled at Lin Yifan. "Mr. Lin, so you want to give this bottle of red wine to me?" Lin Yifan stared blankly for a moment. Looking at Ming-Ming's charming face, his heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. Although his marriage with Ming-Ming was a political matter, but this beauty whose beauty was only inferior to Yamu still made his heart flutter. He nodded subconsciously and said, "Of course. I brought it here to give it to Miss Ming-Ming. Take it as a welcome gift for Miss Ming-Ming's visit to Athens." Ming-Ming smiled and said, "Thank you, Mr. Lin." While saying that, she quietly took the bottle of red wine from Lin Yifan's hand. Lin Yifan naturally couldn't ask Ming-Ming why she said she didn't want to drink. She could only watch as Ming-Ming took the red wine bottle into her hand. She smiled elegantly and said, "Although Miss Ming-Ming doesn't drink, it's not a big deal. This bottle of wine has some value as a collector's item. Or perhaps I can give it to Miss Ming-Ming's father, General G. I think Uncle G will like it very much." Ming-Ming shook her head and said, "No, since it's wine, it's meant to be drunk. What's the point of collecting it? Now that this bottle of wine belongs to me, then let me decide its fate. What do you say, Mr. Lin?" Although Lin Yifan felt that something was wrong, he could only bite the bullet and nodded, of course. Ming Ming didn't have a wine opener. Her right hand gently wiped the bottle cap and the cork was sucked out. The cork was silently sucked out by her hand. She walked out of her seat and slowly walked to Chi Yu's side. She smiled and said, "Then I'll treat Mr. Chi, who came with me, to this rare bottle of red wine. He's always been a good drinker." The rose-colored wine floated into Chi Yu's glass, and very quickly, half a glass of red wine appeared in the crystal glass. Ming Ming not only poured the wine for Chi Yu, she also conveniently left the bottle beside Chi Yu, before returning to her seat and sitting down. Lin Yifan's face was ugly. Even the 4 constellation protectors' faces were ugly. Although their voices were not loud, but Ming Ming was sitting at the main seat, so when she stood up, it naturally attracted the attention of the guests. And when she personally poured the red wine for Chi Yu, it caused the guests to start discussing. Ming Ming used her own actions to prove that the relationship between her and Chi Yu was not something that Lin Yifan could sway. Even if Chi Yu was a ruffian, he became extremely elegant. His face revealed an uncontrollable pride, and the gaze he used to look at Lin Yifan was filled with a sense of ridicule. The originally noisy banquet hall quietened down. Everyone's gaze followed Ming Ming, from the moment she poured the wine for Chi Yu, until she placed the bottle beside Chi Yu and returned to her seat. Ming Ming's actions looked extremely natural, as though everything was logical. From start to finish, she did not even look at Lin Yifan, her gentle gaze was always on Chi Yu. Lin Yifan's face first turned pale, but quickly turned red. Chi Yu could clearly feel that his breathing was extremely unstable, but who could he blame? Who asked him to marry Ming Ming for politics? Chi Yu did not have the slightest bit of sympathy for him. However, Lin Yifan was, after all, the son of the Greek president. In the end, he tolerated it and returned to his seat, his gloomy expression gradually returning to normal. Yamu picked up the wine glass in front of her and gestured to Chi Yu. She smiled and said, "Can I have a taste of this wine that has been aged for close to 500 years? Chi Yu smiled and said, "Of course, I'm not as stingy as someone." As he spoke, he poured half a glass of rose-colored red wine for Yamu. Yamu held her wine glass and stood up. Whether it was her stunning appearance or her identity, she immediately became the focus of the entire banquet hall. "I'm very happy to meet so many friends here today. Next, I have an announcement to make." Yamu's voice was very calm, but when her gaze swept across the entire banquet hall, everyone seemed to feel that she was looking at them. The faint light in her eyes made people feel as though they could not look straight at her. Lin Yifan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In his opinion, Yamu's sudden announcement was obviously to cover up his embarrassing side. Yamu's deep purple eyes scanned the entire banquet hall, gathering everyone's attention on her. She faintly smiled, her pretty face had a faint blush, and she slowly spoke in Greek. "After careful consideration, I have decided that today, I would like to ask all the friends present here to be my witnesses. I officially announce that I am engaged to Mr. Chi from the Yanhuang Republic." Boom! The entire banquet hall was in an uproar. Chapter 185. The wine glass in Lin Yifan's hand slipped and fell onto the table. The wine in the glass splashed onto his clean white suit, but he did not notice it. The 4 constellation guardians stood up at the same time. "Miss," Yamu's sharp gaze landed on the 4 of them, and she said in a deep voice, "Sit down." Under the immense mental pressure, the 4 constellation guardians returned to their seats absent-mindedly. Ming Ming and Chi Yu did not understand Greek. Seeing the huge reaction from the surrounding people, the 2 of them could not help but look at Yamu. Yamu smiled at Chi Yu, and spoke in Yanhuang language. "I am just fulfilling my promise to you. Tell them, from now on, I am your fiancé." Chi Yu's right hand trembled, and the rose-colored wine in the glass spilled out. Luckily, his willpower was not something Lin Yifan could compare to. Although some wine spilled out, it did not splash on his clothes. The gentle smile on Ming Ming's face disappeared, and her sluggish gaze shifted from Yamu to Chiyu. Yamu slowly sat down, as though the uproar had nothing to do with her. She took the initiative to use her own wine glass to touch the wine glass in Chiyu's hand. Such an important moment. Don't you want to have a drink with me? Although he had already reached an agreement with Yamu, Chiyu had never thought that she would actually announce their engagement so quickly. Furthermore, it was in front of Ming Ming. At that moment, no matter how strong he was still in a state of panic. He placed the wine in his mouth, but did not taste anything. Even he himself did not know if he should be happy or laugh bitterly. Mississippi, Ilyas's gaze became sharp. How can you be engaged to this Easterner? Yamu said lightly, this is my private matter. You have no right to interfere. No. Ilyas roared angrily. He could no longer control his emotions. How could it have nothing to do with us? Don't forget who you are. As your guardians, we will not allow such a thing to happen. Not only him, but also Miguelis. Miero and Salem revealed a determined gaze at the same time. Chiyu could clearly feel that the aura of these 4 powerful constellation protectors had completely solidified on his body, and there was a possibility of them taking action at any time. Yamu said coldly, I will explain this matter to you when we return. But here. Please remain calm. Otherwise, get out of here. Her eyes lit up. Her amethyst-like eyes emitted a deep divine light. Although she had expended a large amount of energy in her battle with Chiyu, her goblin aura was enough to intimidate the 4 constellation protectors. Chiyu did not have time to care about the constellation guardians. His gaze was focused on Ming Ming. Through their telepathic connection, he frantically explained to Ming Ming. Ming Ming, don't be angry. Listen to my explanation. The engagement between me and Yamu is fake. It is for the cooperation between our Zodiac Guardian and the Greek constellation guardians. Don't misunderstand. The sluggishness on Ming Ming's face gradually disappeared. She looked at Chiyu with a smile that was not a smile. Hello. In just a short day, you have even managed to pick up Goddess Athena. Looks like you shouldn't be a hoodlum. Instead, you should be a Casanova. This. Ming Ming. Can you let me explain it to you in detail? I really have nothing to do with her. Even Chiyu found it hard to believe his own words. From a psychological point of view, it wasn't that he didn't have feelings for Yu Mao. Ming Ming looked at Chiyu indifferently. She turned to Lin Yifan and smiled. Mr. Lin, I don't feel like eating. Can you send me back to my room to rest? Lin Yifan had not recovered from Yamu's announcement. He suddenly heard Ming Ming's words and woke him up. Of course. I'm sorry, everyone. We will take our leave first. As he spoke, he stood up and gestured to Ming Ming to leave. Ming Ming did not look at Chiyu again. She calmly left the banquet hall under Lin Yifan's guidance. At this moment, Chiyu did not even know if he should stop her. He was already confused by everything that had happened. I'm sorry. Did my announcement cause trouble for you? Yamu said apologetically. Chiyu glanced at her. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. What do you think? If you did it on purpose, then you should know what the result would be. I'm sorry. I don't feel like eating anymore. Goodbye. With that, he left the table and strode out. Looking at Chiyu's tall back, a trace of perplexity appeared in Yumu's eyes. Sighing softly, she followed Chiyu and stood up, chasing after his figure. When the 4 constellation guardians wanted to follow, they heard Yamu's voice. You guys stay here and take care of the guests. Don't follow me. I have something to say to Chiyu. You don't have to ask anything. I can only tell you that my decision today is all for Greece and for us Western Guardians. The 4 constellation guardians looked at each other. No one could say a word. They looked at each other with complicated expressions. In that moment, their hearts were filled with mixed feelings. In their hearts, Yamu was always high and mighty. But today, Yamu suddenly announced her own marriage. To the male constellation guardians, it was like a bolt out of the blue. They could not accept it. At this moment they realized that the perfect miss was after all a woman. She could also get married. When Chiyu walked out of the banquet hall, he had already lost sight of Ming Ming and Lin Yifan. When he wanted to communicate with Ming Ming through their telepathy, he realized that Ming Ming had unilaterally turned off their telepathy. Why did you come out too? Aren't there so many people at the banquet? The main character has left, it doesn't seem appropriate. Sensing Yamu's aura, Chiyu stood there and said without turning his head. Yamu walked to a foot behind Chiyu and stopped. Do you think that I purposely announced our marriage in front of Miss Ming Ming? To create a misunderstanding between you and Miss Ming Ming. Chiyu turned his head to look at her. He discovered that when he looked at Yu Mao's perfect face, he could no longer feel a shred of anger in his heart. No matter what your goal is in announcing our marriage, at the very least, it's enough. You have already caused me a lot of trouble. Yamu looked deeply at Chiyu and said, Chiyu, can I ask you a question? If you were to choose between me and Miss Ming Ming, who would you choose? Chiyu was stunned for a moment. Then, he said without hesitation, I would choose Ming Ming. Yamu's face instantly turned pale and her delicate body even trembled a little. Her sad expression made her lower her head. That pitiful look made Chiyu's heart twitch. However, he did not change his answer. After a long time, Yamu raised her head. Looking into Chiyu's eyes, the expression on her face had already recovered. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked such a question. After all, there is no basis for feelings between us. I don't expect to replace anyone's position, I just hope to leave a place for me in your heart. It's enough for you to acknowledge me as your wife. Ah? It can't be. As the successor of the goddess Athena, she actually compromised so much. Chiyu could not understand what Yamu meant. Looking at her, he could not help but frown. Yamu sighed and said, Perhaps my announcement just now caused you trouble, but announcing it in such a situation just now was the most effective guarantee for you. Isn't it? The words that came out of my mouth cannot be changed. Perhaps you think that you have been wronged. But, have you ever thought about me, with my identity in Greece, saying such words in public, how much pressure I would have to bear? How would I explain to the government, how would I explain to the constellation guardians? In their hearts, how much would their view of me change? I think, the things that I have to bear are greater than yours. Chiyu smiled bitterly. I'm sorry, Yamu. I don't want to blame you, but I don't want our cooperative relationship to cause Ming Ming to misunderstand me. I won't lie to you, to be honest, I really love Ming Ming. I don't want her to be hurt, especially in terms of feelings, I can't hurt her, do you understand? Yamu nodded lightly and said, I understand. Let's go, I'll send you to your room. You fool, coming out alone, where can you go? Don't forget, you didn't even get a passport to come to Greece. Chiyu smiled slightly and said, I'm sorry, I was a little impulsive just now, I apologize to you, then let's go. Ming Ming and Chiyu were both staying at the top floor of the hotel. There were only 3 presidential suites in the entire hotel, and they each occupied one. Ming Ming sat on the big round bed in the presidential suite, looking at the wall in front of her in a daze. The light in her beautiful eyes was very dim, slightly lowering her head, so that Lin Yifan could not see the expression in her eyes. Miss Ming Ming, don't be sad. I also did not expect Miss to make such a choice. To be honest, even I can't accept this fact. Miss is the successor of goddess Athena. She actually made such an announcement. I really did not expect someone of Miss's status to have the intention to get married. At this moment, Lin Yifan could be said to be half happy and half worried. He was happy because Yamu's announcement had created a very good opportunity for him, but he was worried because Yamu's announcement in front of so many people was clearly not a joke. Even if it was just an engagement, it would have a huge impact on Yamu's reputation in Greece. Ming Ming indifferently said, I'm sorry, Mr. Lin. I'm a little tired, can I rest for a while? Lin Yifan elegantly stood up and said with a smile, Of course. Ming Ming, you haven't rested since you came to Greece. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning and bring you to the specialty restaurant in the east of Athens for breakfast, okay? Ming Ming forced a faint smile and looked at Lin Yifan. Thank you for your hospitality today. I'm very happy to be in Greece. Be careful. Lin Yifan heard that Ming Ming's voice was clearly much gentler than before, and he couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. He smiled. Ming Ming, so you actually care about me this much? Ming Ming indifferently said. At least in name, you're still my fiancé, aren't you? It's my duty to care about you. You seem to be missing the word, miss, in the way you address me. Lin Yifan maintained his elegant temperament. Even the wine stain on his white suit couldn't conceal his superhuman temperament. Ming Ming, didn't you just say that we're fiancé and fiancée? I think you won't mind the difference in the way we address each other, right? Ming Ming raised her head and looked at him, and her expression seemed to have recovered a little. She smiled. How you address me is up to you, I can't control your mouth. Whatever you want. Lin Yifan laughed heartily and said, That's my honor. Since that's the case, Ming Ming, can you stop calling me Mr. Lin? Call me Yifan, that's what all my friends call me. Yifan? Alright. I'm tired. Ming Ming lowered her head and seemed to be a little shy as she called out Lin Yifan's name. Then rest early, I'm going back. Lin Yifan had already forgotten the shock that Yama gave him earlier, and left Ming Ming's room with satisfaction. To him, the change in the way he addressed her was definitely a good start. What he wanted was not just the status between him and Ming Ming, but Ming Ming's heart. He wanted to prove that he was better than Chi Yu in every aspect. The moment Lin Yifan left the room, Ming Ming's expression immediately changed. She said hatefully, This guy really wants a foot after giving him an inch. Yifan, he's really disgusting. My family's ruffian is still the best. Do you really think I'll be angry? If my relationship with Chi Yu can't withstand the test, then I'm not Ji Ming Ming. Ming Ming couldn't help but giggle as she talked to herself. Her face revealed an unconcealable sweetness. When Yamu announced her engagement with Chi Yu, she was indeed shocked, and her heart was filled with anger. Looking at Yamu's perfect face, for a moment, she really thought that Chi Yu would have a change of heart. However, Chi Yu's immediate explanation made her feel much better. After the two of them communicated telepathically, Ming Ming decided to use this opportunity to gain Lin Yifan's trust. She then pretended to be angry and left the banquet hall. She unilaterally cut off telepathic communication because she was a little angry. Although she couldn't communicate with Chi Yu, she could still hear Chi Yu's voice. This secret was only known to her and Chi Yu. After all, telepathic communication was much more secretive than telepathy. Even if Yamu could eavesdrop on telepathy, she couldn't eavesdrop on telepathic communication. After coming to Greece, Chi Yu and Ming Ming had never stopped communicating. Although Ming Ming didn't know about the battle between Chi Yu and Yamu, based on her trust in Chi Yu, she believed that Chi Yu could control his emotions. What made Ming Ming feel sweet was the conversation between Chi Yu and Yamu just now. In order to prevent any changes in Ming Ming's heart, Chi Yu deliberately transmitted the conversation between him and Yamu into Ming Ming's heart through telepathic communication. Especially when she heard Yamu's question to Chi Yu and Chi Yu's answer without hesitation, her remaining worry disappeared. At this moment, she even thought it through. Chi Yu's destiny was to have more than one woman in his life. Why should she be jealous? As long as she had an important position in his heart, it was enough. In another presidential suite that was only a few tens of meters away from Ming Ming's room. Yamu, when do you intend to start? Chi Yu asked. Yamu said, What if I say now? Chi Yu was startled and said, I'm afraid it's not appropriate now. Just now when you announced our marriage, your constellation protectors were obviously not in the right mood. If they suddenly feel the change in your energy, I'm afraid it's not appropriate. How about this? Why don't you go back to Parthenon first, and at the same time explain to your constellation protectors? I'll sneak over tonight, and then we can start. At that time, my strength will have recovered to about 70%, and I'll have the ability to protect you. Yamu sighed and said, Is there a need to explain? I've already announced it. Even if I explain again, they won't understand. Thank you for being considerate of me. Then you rest first, I'll go back. After all, we're still unmarried. It's not appropriate for me to stay here. After Chi-Yu sent Yamu out of the room, he realized that he and Ming Ming were able to communicate telepathically. Ming Ming, are you still angry? Chi-Yu probed. Ming Ming said unhappily, Do you think I get angry so easily? Alright, what's going on today? Why would that Yamu suddenly announce that she wants to marry you? Is there something wrong with her brain? According to my understanding of Greek mythology, Goddess Athena should be a virgin goddess. Chi-Yu laughed and said, Don't tell me that it's because of this that you don't suspect me. You wish. I don't suspect you, because you're obviously not worthy of her. She's so pretty, how could she like you? Ming Ming said with a hint of ridicule. Chi-Yu said with a smile, That's not necessarily true. Although I, your hubby, am not handsome, don't you think I'm very classy? Ming Ming said with a smile, Come on. Only the extremely ugly will say that they are classy. Stop messing around, tell me, where did you go today, and what happened? Chi-Yu said, After you left today, she quickly came to pick me up, and then brought me to Parthenon. It's the place where the goddess Athena is worshipped. Athena is indeed the goddess of war and wisdom. I fought with Yamu. She's stronger than I imagined. Although we both held back, in the end, I still had to rely on the Xianyuan sword to fight her to a draw. At that moment, Chi-Yu recounted the process of him and Yamu in detail. Of course, he naturally ignored the part where he was hugging Yamu. After listening to Chi-Yu's explanation, Ming Ming said with some doubt, Then are you really going to help her? Was she trying to trick him? She's already so strong if she improves further. I'm afraid, Chi-Yu said. I thought about it carefully before I decided to agree to her. First of all, if she really wanted to harm us, with the strength of her and the 12 constellation guardians, she wouldn't need to waste so much time with me. After all, she doesn't know that my 1,000 changes Xuanji realm technique has the ability to escape. Moreover, from my conversation with Yamu, I can tell that she really wants to cooperate with us, at least at this stage. It's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Since I've decided to go against the Vatican, I can't make any more enemies in the West. Therefore, after much consideration, I decided to agree to her suggestion. Ming Ming snorted and said, I think you chose her over the Vatican mainly because she's a beauty. Of course, there's a reason for that. However, this was not the main reason. Beauties always have an advantage, hehe. If it wasn't for you, it's impossible for me to integrate into the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors camp so quickly. If it wasn't for Ryua's pressure, I wouldn't have been able to increase my strength so quickly. The promotion effect of beautiful women had always been very big. I wanted to make use of this opportunity to understand the characteristics of Athena's power. Although I had decided to cooperate with them, I still had to be on guard against them. Don't worry, as long as we keep in touch at all times, I have the confidence to rush to your side in an instant. Even if there is a problem, we can solve it immediately. What I'm worried about now is Yamu's situation. There's something wrong with her Zodiac guardians. Just now, I even felt killing intent from 2 of the 4 Zodiac guardians. It seems that Yamu didn't lie to me in this aspect. Ming Ming, be careful. Oh, right. Don't let Lin Yifan take advantage of you. Otherwise, I'll kill him immediately, no matter the cost. Ming Ming said unhappily, Do you think I'm you? A loose ruffian, flirting everywhere. No, it should be a hooligan ruffian. Chi-Yu said awkwardly, This is a physiological problem. How about this, the next time I go to the ancient beast era, I'll bring you along. You can go ask those Kirin. Ming Ming said, All right, you should rest quickly. Aren't you going to protect that Yamu? You must be careful. Chi-Yu said, I will. With the Qian G100 changes technique, even if I can't win, can't I run? The reason why I want your relationship with that Lin Yifan to not be so rigid is mainly because in the future, I may have to focus most of my energy on protecting Yum. You and Lin Yifan should have a good relationship, so that those Zodiac guardians won't dare to touch you. After all, you're representing our country. This way, I can also be free. After the telepathic communication ended, Qi Yu didn't waste any time. He immediately began to cultivate. Using Kiran's ascending cloud technique and the energy of the origin of nature as the foundation, he quickly absorbed the energy molecules in the air. When he started cultivating, Qi Yu was pleasantly surprised. He discovered that after the battle with Yamu today, the energy in his body seemed to have undergone some subtle changes. The energy density was actually higher than before. In other words, the energy was compressed and more condensed. This was not only greatly beneficial for him to absorb more thundercloud force in the future. It also allowed his thundercloud force to exert more power when attacking. After some simple thought, Qi Yu understood why such a situation would occur. The condensation of energy probably had a lot to do with the final attack of Yamu's the signs of the Zodiac domain. The huge pressure of the area of the 12 palaces actually made his energy more condensed. And at that time, in order to make use of the unity of heaven and man, he also used the Qian G100 changes technique to compress and increase all the energy in his body. Under the joint effect, there was an improvement in strength. As he became stronger and stronger, Qi Yu gradually understood that when his strength surpassed 6 clouds, he needed not only hard work to improve, but also the pressure of actual combat, and the changes in energy in actual combat were also very important. Only by fighting with experts who were stronger than him could he have a greater improvement in his own strength. Only then could there be a greater improvement in his own strength. But where could he find opponents who were stronger than him? Thinking of this, Qi Yu actually subconsciously thought of the Bull Demon King. Ever since the Bull Demon King became Lin Fan's messenger, he had not made any movements. He seemed to be in a deep sleep. He hoped that he would not really think of a way to solve the life and death domain. Frankly speaking, the only thing that could really make Qi Yu afraid now was the Bull Demon King. That guy was really strong. Even when he and Wen Ting had fully activated the highest realm of the unity of heaven and man after fusing, they could not cause any harm to him. Qi Yu faintly felt that even with the Xianyuan sword, if he did not have the strength to use the 5 swords, he might not be able to defeat the Bull Demon King. That guy simply should not exist in the human world. His strength was really too strong. When night fell, when Qi Yu quietly came to Parthenon, he really understood the importance that the Greek government attached to Athena. Along the way, he used his spiritual power to sense the location of Yamu and successfully found Parthenon. But along the way, he passed more than 10 checkpoints, some on the surface and some in the dark. All of them were armed with live ammunition, and the defense was very tight. There were even radar waves sweeping the air. In order not to alarm the army guarding the Temple of Athena, in the end, Qi Yu was forced to use his invisibility ability to quietly sneak over. Qi Yu watched the luxurious convoy of 7 cars leave Parthenon before he quietly entered. With his current cultivation, even Yamu would have a hard time discovering him when he was in Kiran concealment. Yamu quietly sat cross-legged under the statue of Athena with her eyes lowered, as if nothing had happened. After the entire temple entered the night, the holy aura had become even stronger. At this time, Yamu had changed into a white dress. It was still a dress without any decorations, but it looked more like a foil to her noble, elegant, and holy aura. Looking at Yamu, Qi Yu could not help but sigh in his heart. It was really hard to imagine that this woman, who had inherited the divinity of the goddess Athena, would publicly announce to the public that she was his fiancée not long ago. Although there was not even an engagement ceremony, it was enough to make him feel proud. How would it feel to have Athena as his wife? He tiptoed towards Yamu. At first, Chi-Yu wanted to give her a surprise. However, when he passed by the pattern of the zodiac on the ground, the holy aura in the temple suddenly became stronger, and a deep golden light scattered in all directions. Then, it condensed into a huge golden light pillar that enveloped Chi-Yu's body, causing him, who was in Kirin concealment, to have nowhere to hide. I can't even sneak in like this. As expected of Athena's temple. Chi-Yu smiled and sighed softly, then withdrew Kirin concealment. Yamu slowly opened her eyes, and Chi-Yu discovered that her originally purple eyes had now become completely golden. Feeling the change in Yamu's aura, Chi-Yu asked solemnly, "Are you ready?" Yamu nodded and said, "Chi-Yu, you should have seen those people just now. The president of Greece personally came to see me." Chi-Yu smiled and said, "You can imagine. The symbol of our country is actually going to marry an Asian. If it were me, I would also be anxious." Rain Eyes gently looked at Chi-Yu as she said, "However, I will not change my mind when I have already decided on something. You don't need to worry about anything. My promise to you will always be valid. I have already convinced the president. However, there is one thing I must tell you in advance. Just now, after my communication with the artifact, I found that a month's time is not enough. Because this fusion could be said to be my only chance to fuse with it. Either I give up halfway or I need about 3 months to complete everything. Can you protect me all the time?" Looking at Yamu's gentle eyes, Chi-Yu really could not refuse. "Yamu, if this is really the case, in these 3 months, you must listen to my arrangements. Can I?" Yamu smiled and said, "Why not? Since I have chosen you, I must trust you. Because I have no way out, right? My fiancé." Chi-Yu looked at her with deep meaning in his eyes and said, "All right, you can start now. Do you need my help now?" Yamu shook her head and said, "I only need you to be my guardian. I believe you can do everything." Chi-Yu said, "It is my honor to be able to protect my Athena. Let's start." As he said that, he stood in front of the picture of the Zodiac and sat cross-legged, facing Yamu, who was in front of the statue of Athena. The two looked at each other and closed their eyes at the same time. The holy aura in Parthenon was indeed strong, so the energy molecules here were more abundant than in other places. Besides Yamu, who could completely control the energy here, the picture of the Zodiac was the place with the strongest energy fluctuations in the entire Parthenon. Although it was not the same kind of energy as Chi-Yu's, it was undoubtedly the most suitable place for him to cultivate. Chi-Yu did not waste any time. He knew very well that Yamu had sacrificed so much to gain his trust and let him work with her to protect her. This time, the protection would not be so simple. Chapter 186. Chi-Yu entered a semi-cultivation state, and his mental strength was also spreading out with Parthenon as the center. It could be said that as long as it was within the range of his mental strength, even a radar would not be as accurate as his senses. After Chi-Yu closed his eyes and began to cultivate, Yamu opened her golden eyes again. Her gaze fell on Chi-Yu for a while, and there was a complicated look in her eyes. However, she seemed to have made up her mind about something, and her gaze quickly returned to normal. At this moment, her body was burning like the sun, and a huge golden light began to rise in the form of mist. As the light shone, Yamu's hands alternated in front of her and extended outwards, and the golden light began to transform from mist into a solid form. Under the influence of the golden energy, the statue of the goddess Athena behind Yamu turned completely golden, and a holy aura floated out. The eyes of the statue of the goddess Athena suddenly lit up, and Yamu's body also floated up from where she was sitting. Wearing a white dress, with her long purple wavy hair, and the golden light emitted from her body, she now looked like a real god. Strong energy aura continued to condense into her body from the air. The signs of the zodiac domain around Chi-Yu were also affected by Athena's aura, and instantly released energy waves that were more than 10 times stronger than before. At this time, Chi-Yu did not care about the changes in Yamu. While maintaining his mental strength to sense the surroundings, he did not hesitate to absorb the huge energy molecules around him. The thundercloud force in his body recovered quickly under such circumstances, and in about half an hour, he was completely in peak condition. The benefits of the battle with Yamu began to show after his energy was fully recovered. The compressed energy became more condensed, and the thundercloud force also began to condense continuously in his body. Floating in the air, the statue of the goddess Athena was behind Yamu, and the golden light constantly surged towards the statue of the goddess Athena like waves. The statue of the goddess Athena's body also completely lit up, and it formed a bridge of energy to communicate with Yamu. Yamu began to chant in a low voice. It was the oldest incantation in Greece, and the sweet chanting voice constantly transmitted traces of energy waves. Although the waves were not strong, they caused the golden light on the statue of the goddess Athena to become stronger and stronger. Outside Parthenon, the sky suddenly lit up, and the clouds in the sky scattered in all directions. A huge golden beam with a diameter floated down and rushed into Parthenon. It happened to envelop Yamu and the statue of the goddess Athena completely. The process of transferring energy had begun. A golden armor quietly appeared in front of Yamu, followed by the scepter of the goddess of victory and the shield of the goddess of victory that Chi-Yu had seen before. The three artifacts let out a low buzzing sound and began to spin around Yamu's body. The statue of the goddess Athena behind Yamu held the same artifact in its hand. At the same time, 3 rays of light were shot out and injected into the 3 artifacts. Yamu's chanting gradually became louder, and the golden light around her body began to condense into physical golden lightning. Then, it surged into the 3 artifacts from all directions. At this moment, Chi-Yu's mental strength suddenly fluctuated, and he opened his eyes. When he saw everything in front of him with his own eyes, he was instantly filled with shock. With the statue of the goddess Athena, Yamu completely released the holiness that belonged to the goddess of war and wisdom. The massive aura of energy was continuously transferred, and her chanting did not seem to have any intention of stopping. The process of transferring energy had entered the most critical moment. It's here. I wonder if it's the Guardian or the Destroyer. Chi-Yu laughed at himself and turned around. With his back facing Yamu, who was floating in midair, he fixed his gaze on the entrance of Parthenon. At this moment, his thundercloud force had completely reached its peak state, and he was waiting quietly. 5 minutes later, an ear-piercing sound was heard without warning, and the door of Parthenon opened. A black figure rushed into the temple at lightning speed. Mississippi, there was a tinge of surprise and nervousness in the voice. Chi-Yu happened to know the person who came. It was the Scorpio constellation guardian, Soso, who had gone to the Yenhuang Republic with Yum. Soso was still as beautiful as ever, and her dark red hair made her even more gorgeous. What made Chi-Yu's eyes almost spit fire was that Soso was actually wearing a short black leather skirt. It could not be any shorter, only reaching the top of her thighs. She only wore a sleeveless black leather top that revealed her lower abdomen. At least more than 90% of her skin was exposed to the air. This kind of attire completely exposed Soso's voluptuous figure in front of Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu could not help but think viciously that this woman could not have just come back from pole dancing, could she? Soso's legs were slender and straight, and her snow-white skin looked full of elasticity. Her full bosom seemed to be on the verge of bursting out of the black leather top at any time. There was no need for makeup, her full of charm was enough to make any man's mouth go dry. If Yama was said to be an otherworldly fairy, then Soso was definitely like a little witch from hell with a devilish figure. And it was the most seductive kind. "Hello, Miss Soso, we meet again." Chi-Yu smiled and looked at Soso, and could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. In his heart, he was thinking, with her slender waist without a trace of fat, what effect would it have on the bed? It would probably not be any worse than a small electric motor. Soso was stunned for a moment when she saw Chi-Yu, and then looked at Yamu, who was floating in the air behind him. Her eyes could not help but reveal a strange light. What did you do to Miss? The cold voice, coupled with his charming appearance, was indeed very lethal. Chiyu shrugged his shoulders and said, What can I do to Yamu? Can't you see that I'm protecting her? Soso snorted coldly and said, Protecting Miss is the responsibility of the 12 constellation guardians. What has it got to do with you? Get out of here immediately. This is not a place you should be in. Chiyu laughed, his eyes constantly moving around Soso's exposed snow-white skin. Why should I leave? I was invited by Yamu, and it seems like the owner here should be her, and not you. No, Soso, you look even more voluptuous than the last time. I'm really infatuated with you. Soso looked at Chiyu's lecherous look, and a trace of deep disgust flashed past her eyes, but there was an additional smile on her face. Is that really the case, Mr. Chi? You look much stronger too. I just don't know if you're a real man. Her red lips pursed slightly, and her tongue slid across her lip. Soso walked towards Chiyu step by step, her voluptuous bosom only trembling slightly, showing how astonishing their elasticity was. Chiyu said, If you want to know if I'm a real man, it seems like it's better on the bed. I don't mind having a one-night stand with you, but I'm afraid that you'll sting me like a scorpion. I can't take it. Soso smiled charmingly and said, Don't you Yen Wang people have a saying? It's called dying under a peony flower. Being a ghost is also a romantic? Don't you want to be a romantic? Chiyu laughed. We Yen Wang people have another saying, the green bamboo snake's mouth, the wasp's stinger. Neither is poisonous, but the most poisonous is a woman's heart. I wonder if you've heard of it? Soso's expression changed. Chiyu, this is Athens, not your Yenwang Republic. You can leave now. Otherwise, our constellation protectors will treat you as an invading enemy, and we won't rest until you're dead. Protecting the miss is what we have to do. Not you. You're just a yellow pig from the east. Who knows what you're thinking? Chiyu's expression also changed. He looked coldly at Soso and said, I wonder if you're insulting me, or insulting your most respected Yamu. I don't believe you don't know that Yamu has already declared in public that she's my fiancée. The light in Soso's eyes turned venomous. She snorted, and with a slight shift of her feet, she was already in front of Chiyu. 2 beams of dark red light shot towards Chiyu's eyes. Chiyu stood there without moving. Seeing Soso's attack reach him, he took a step forward and raised his right hand. His middle finger flicked twice in quick succession. 2 piercing sounds rang out as the 2 dark red needles were flicked away by his bare hands. At this moment, Suasua had already arrived in front of Chiyu. His entire body turned into a dark red shadow as he attacked Chiyu with incomparably fast speed like a torrential storm. Chiyu snorted, completely ignoring Soso's attack. An extremely sharp energy suddenly appeared. The energy aura was not strong, but Soso was shocked to find that she had no way of blocking this energy. All of her attacks were stopped in an instant, and at this critical moment she fell to the side. She pushed herself off the ground with one hand, and with a nimble somersault she flew 10 meters away. A lustful light flashed in Chiyu's eyes. So it's black panties. And a thong. Sexy as expected. But you don't look like a scorpion right now, but like a wildcat. But I quite like women like you. At least you're hot enough. Looking at Soso, Chiyu could not help but think of Lu Xiangbing. I haven't seen her for more than half a year. After this trip to the west is over, I must go back and look for her. However, I don't know what kind of attitude that girl, who isn't any less hot than Saw, will have towards me. Soso's eyes shone with shock. This was not her first time fighting with Chiyu, but the sharp energy from before had made her feel an intense fear. In their first exchange, it was clear that Chiyu was the one who had been defeated and had to flee. Of course, that was just wishful thinking on her part. Smiling, Chiyu's eyes revealed a faint cold light. That's enough, Soso. If you go forward again, then I will treat you as a traitor among the constellation guardians. Unless you want to alarm Yamu? Soso looked at Chiyu coldly, her feet moving slowly. From her energy aura, it could be felt that she was looking for Chiyu's weakness. But she did not attack again. She was shocked to realize that Chiyu's body was filled with weaknesses, and all of them seemed to be non-existent. This feeling made her not dare to move forward. She knew that with her own strength, she was not Chiyu's opponent. Chiyu, do you want to die? We have sensed Mrs. Aura. All the constellation guardians will gather here soon. At that time, no matter how strong you are, you will not be able to fight against all of us. I will give you a chance. It's not too late to leave now. Chiyu smiled. Miss Soso, do you know that your current appearance is like a wolf in sheep's clothing in our Yen Huang Empire? Do you think I will leave? Will I hurt my fiancé? I think you are the one who wants to hurt Yamu. Soso's expression changed. What nonsense are you talking about? Miss knows my loyalty to Miss the best. Chiyu shrugged his shoulders. Even if Yamu knows, I don't. So, we might as well wait. After Yamu finishes her training, let her be the judge. The people you are waiting for are here, although not all of them. 4 strong auras appeared at the same time. Soso turned around instinctively, only to see Leo constellations Ilias, Sagittarius constellations Miguelis, Capricorn constellations Miero and Aquarius constellations Saling rushing into Parthenon at the same time. When the 4 of them saw Yamu floating in the air, they could not help but exclaim at the same time, and rushed towards Chiyu without hesitation. This time, Soso did not move. Instead, she moved to the side, her eyes revealing a cold smile. The smile on Chiyu's face disappeared, and he shouted, "Stop! Are you guys trying to disturb Yamu's training?" The 4 figures suddenly stopped, and stopped 5 m away from Chiyu. Ilias said angrily, "Get out of the way. Why did young Miss suddenly become like this? I can clearly feel that her energy is quickly disappearing. Is it you? Did you do something to young Miss?" Chiyu said angrily, "Do you constellation protectors have any brains? If I did something to Yamu, would I still be standing here? Idiot, if you guys want to hurt Yamu, then go ahead and disturb her. To think that you guys call yourselves Athena's most loyal protectors. You." Ilias was enraged. This impulsive lion had already raised his fist at lightning speed. But he did not swing his fist, not because he was restraining himself, but because his fist was grabbed by a large hand. It was from Capricorn constellation's Miero's hand. Miero's face was still as cold as ever. He said coldly, "Ilias, stop. He's right. We cannot disturb young Miss's training. Can't you guys see young Miss is currently merging with Goddess Athena's 3 divine weapons? This is something that no one can force. As long as young Miss is willing, then she can reverse inject her energy into the divine weapons." Miguelis nodded his head and said, "That's right, I can feel it too." "Ilias, calm down." Ilias was startled, although he was still looking at Chiyu with hostility, but he finally lowered his raised fist. He turned to look at Soso and said coldly, "What's going on? Soso, you've always been staying at the nearest place. Did young Miss not inform you of anything?" Soso seemed to be afraid of the lion, and shook his head, and said, "No, I only rushed over after sensing the change in young Miss's energy aura. This fellow from the east did not even let me go over. I think it must be his doing." "Shut up. Look at what you've done. We constellation protectors have lost face because of you. I think you might as well become a dancer," Ilias said disdainfully, not giving Soso any face. Soso's face immediately turned pale. He looked at Ilias, his eyes seemed to be spewing fire. "Ilias, don't go overboard, I've already tolerated you for too long." Ilias turned to Soso. "What? You want to fight with me? Do you think you're worthy?" "Enough." Aquarius constellation Saling, who had been silent all this while, stopped the 2 from arguing. He grabbed onto Ilias's shoulder and pulled him towards Chiyu, and at the same time spoke to Chiyu. "Mr. Chi, can you give me an explanation? Soso said that you were already here when she came, then. I think you must know about young Mrs. situation? Chiyu nodded his head and said, Of course I know. Yamu told me, in order for her to raise her strength, she needs to fuse with Goddess Athena's 3 divine weapons. So, she asked me to protect her. Can't you see? If I wanted to hurt Yamu, I wouldn't have waited until now. Soso snorted in disdain. You want to hurt young miss, you're not narcissistic, are you? Chiyu said indifferently, That's right, I will not hurt Yamu, but that is the truth. Yamu asked me to be her protector, so I have to do my job. So, before she finishes her training, none of you can get close to her. Miero frowned. Since young miss wants to train, why didn't she call us to protect her, but let an outsider like you do it? I find it hard to believe what you're saying. Chiyu said, I don't know about that. Maybe Yamu thinks I'm more suitable to protect her. After all, I'm her fiancé, the person she trusts the most is naturally me. Shut up, whose fiancé are you? I don't believe young miss is willing to marry a yellow pig like you. Ilyas roared angrily. Chiyu's expression suddenly became very calm, so calm that it was somewhat scary. Second time, today is the second time someone has called me that. Ilyas, you have to pay for what you said. Ilyas looked at him coldly. Do you think I'm afraid of you? A yellow pig who only knows how to harm his own body. He didn't get to finish the last word. Suddenly, an incomparably strong and sharp aura hit him in the face. It blocked his last word. Ilyas's expression changed greatly, but he didn't dodge like Soso. Instead, he clasped his hands in front of him, and the light in his eyes suddenly burst out. He fiercely pushed it towards Chiyu. A roar that belonged to a lion came out from the energy ripple. The golden light turned into a pillar, bringing with it a tyrannical energy aura that struck towards Chiyu's chest. A strange scene appeared. Ilyas's attack had not even reached Chiyu's body when it sliced apart a meter away. The golden energy actually broke apart from the center. The originally ferocious attack was silently dissolved by Chiyu. The energy that was sliced in half rushed towards the 2 sides of the temple, scaring him into immediately retracting his own energy, but the sharp energy that Chiyu had released was already in front of him. This strange situation immediately attracted the attention of the other constellation guardians. Sailing's hand that was on Ilyas's shoulder exerted force and immediately pulled his body to the side. However, his movement was still a little too slow. The sharp aura almost brushed past Ilyas's shoulder. Blood spurted out, and blood spurted out from Ilyas's shoulder. He let out a muffled groan, and his body actually staggered from the shock of the remaining energy. The clothes on his right shoulder had already been sliced off, and at the same time, a piece of flesh had also been sliced off. A cold and domineering aura emerged from Chiyu's body. At this moment, he was no longer a person, but a fusion of body and sword. As the owner of the Xianyuan sword, although he could not truly unleash the power of the Xianyuan sword, he could completely use the sharp energy that belonged to the Xianyuan sword. The Xianyuan sword, ranked number 2 in the top 10 divine weapons, was known as the strongest offensive divine weapon. Just the characteristics of its energy aura was enough to do many things. The faces of the 5 constellation guardians changed at the same time. They did not expect that Chiyu would actually become so domineering at this moment. Raising his right hand, he stretched out his index finger and pointed at Ilyas. For the sake of Yamu, I will let you off this time, but there won't be a next time. No one will be able to save you. Not even Yamu. 1 against 5, and still daring to say such arrogant words, and facing 5 powerful constellation guardians, Chiyu was definitely the first. But the 5 constellation guardians in front of him could clearly feel that he was not joking. Silence, a short silence. Although Ilyas's eyes looked like they were about to spit fire, he did not insult Chiyu after all. Solung pointed at his shoulder. A faint white air current surrounded the wound on his shoulder, as though it was temporarily frozen. Miero slowly walked out from his position, releasing a sharp aura from his body. He looked at Chiyu. When Miss finishes her training, regardless of the situation, I will challenge you. I hope you will not reject me. Chi Yu said indifferently, what you said just now is worthy of my respect. I will accept any challenge from you. Someone else is here. The reaction of the Constellation Guardians is truly not slow. Just as he finished speaking, 6 figures shot in like lightning from outside, and met up with the 5 constellation protectors inside the divine temple. Among them, there were some that Chi Yu recognized, and some that he did not, but all of them released a powerful aura. When the 6 constellation guardians saw Chi Yu, they all revealed different expressions. They had seen Chi Yu before. They revealed surprise. As for the others, they were mostly filled with hostility. With a smile, Chi Yu looked at the 11 people in front of him, and said, out of the 12 constellation guardians, 11 are here, as expected of the people who protect Goddess Athena. But why is there one more? I wanted to get to know all of the constellation guardians today. A tall and sturdy man walked out. The dense energy released a huge pressure like a wall. Brat, who are you? Without waiting for Chi Yu to reply, Soa had already said, do you still need to ask? He is the one that Miss announced to marry today. The tall and sturdy man was startled. It's this brat? He doesn't look that outstanding? Why would Miss like him? Miguelis frowned. Taurus, speak less. Chi Yu suddenly realized, so the tall and sturdy man was the Taurus constellation guardian. Looking at this guy's stature, he seemed to be more than half the size of himself. Although his appearance couldn't be considered handsome, he had a kind of wild aura. At least on the surface, he looked very simple and honest, easily giving people a good impression. Hello, I am Chi Yu from Yenwang Republic. You are the Taurus constellation guardian, right? The big man nodded his head and said, that's right, I am Taurus constellation's Jiugulong Si. Jiugulong Si, such a weird name. Chi Yu thought. Looking at the people in front of him, he said, Yamu is currently at the most crucial moment of training. All of you are the constellation guardians protecting Athena. I think I do not need to explain much. I can only tell you, I do not have any enmity here. I am just helping you to protect her safety. I hope you can understand. Wait for Yamu's training to end. She will naturally explain to all of you. Jiugulong Si looked at Chi Yu in surprise and said, don't tell me, you are the legendary Gemini constellation? Chi Yu was startled and said, Gemini constellation? What Gemini constellation? Jiugulong Si did not see the gazes the other constellation guardians gave him, and said subconsciously, I heard Miss say Gemini constellation is a foreigner and does not train with us, is that you? Chi Yu's heart moved. He immediately understood that the one missing from the constellation guardians should be the Gemini constellation guardian. Unless Yamu was worried about him? Thinking in his heart, he shook his head and said, no, I am not the Gemini constellation guardian. I am from Yenwang Republic. All of you can call me by my name. I am Chi Yu. I wonder if all of you can introduce yourselves so that I can get to know you. You Greeks have weird names. I can't even remember the last time I saw you. Jiugulong Si said, I am Golden Bull. I have already introduced myself. A slender figure walked out from behind Jiugulong Si, with a warm smile, a calm and wise gaze. It immediately left a deep impression on Chi Yu. He was obviously not like Ilya's. He smiled at Chi Yu, and said in a friendly manner, hello, I am Aries constellation's Eunice. Chi Yu was startled. Eunice, why did this name sound so familiar? Eunice smiled and said, speaking of which, I have some fate with Yenwang Republic. My uncle is coaching your country's men's basketball team. Speaking of which, Mr. Chi should remember. Chi Yu suddenly said, so that's how it is, but why do you have the same name as your uncle? Eunice smiled. This is a tradition of our Greek names. There are also differences, but it is not easy to differentiate from Yenwang language, so I will not explain in detail. The beautiful Sisi walked out from behind Eunice. Welcome to Greece. We have met. I am Cancer Sisi. Chi Yu nodded. When others had a good attitude towards him, His attitude would naturally be good as well. Miss Cece, you seem to have become more beautiful. It is good to see you again. Cece nodded to Chi-Yu and retreated to the side. Ilyas looked at Chi-Yu and snorted, Leo constellation, Ilyas. Chi-Yu looked at him. He was a little surprised to find that, other than anger, Ilyas was looking at him with a look of admiration. His heart moved. He thought to himself, this person is really straightforward, seems like he does not have any ulterior motive. At this moment, a feminine voice sounded, Hello, I am Virgo Lumetz. Chi-Yu looked between Ilyas and Miguelis, and saw a tall man greeting him. But, very quickly, he was suspicious, whether this was a man or not. He had seen many handsome men before, and the majority of the constellation protectors present could be considered handsome. But it was his first time seeing a handsome man who was even prettier than a girl, and whose appearance was almost comparable to that of Ming Ming. Virgo, could it be that he was a woman dressed as a man? Chi-Yu looked at Lumetz with a strange gaze and nodded his head. After Lumetz greeted Chi-Yu, he had already turned his gaze to Yamu, who was in the air. His height was actually similar to the Taurus constellation's Hydra Dragon Sea, just that he was not as tall and sturdy as Hydra Dragon Sea. I am Mephistopheles, Scorpio constellation. A short and stout body squeezed out, that body that was like a rubber ball was not light. Seeing him, Chi-Yu's heart finally calmed down a little. Amongst the constellation guardians, there was finally one that was not considered handsome. Mephistopheles was fat, his entire body was fat, and his skin was extremely white, with only a few strands of hair. It looked weird. But from the energy aura on his body, Chi-Yu did not dare to look down on this fatso in front of him. His energy was extremely reserved, although it did not look overbearing on the surface, but Chi-Yu understood, this was a true expert, perhaps amongst the constellation guardians, other than Gemini constellation who did not come, his strength was the strongest. Scorpio constellation, Su. Sagittarius constellation, Miguelis. Capricorn constellation, Miero. Aquarius constellation, Salem. The 4 constellation guardians that he knew previously still reported their names one by one. The last constellation guardian, Chi-Yu also knew him. He had seen him before in Yanhuang Republic. You are Pisces constellation's Garcia, if I remember correctly, beautiful lady. Garcia smiled gently and said, Yes, I am Garcia. Hello, Mr. Chi.